here's the deal. I'm going to go play soccer stadiums with the cult opening for Metallica. Every one of the teachers was like, you're already getting an A. Of course, you could take the final early. The gang there was called the White Fence Gang. And we would give them like $50 to make sure no one's cars got broken into that came to see us.
Okay.
It was Metallica, and then we had a few shows with Guns N' Roses.
Wow.
Which was kind of nuts. Then we were going to do a bunch of weeks with the Chili Peppers. But they had an interim guitar player, and they canceled. I started talking to a woman. I said, what do you do? She said, oh, I manage a shoe store. I went and applied. And it was kind of fun because like I had money coming in because I had roommates. I had money in the bank. But I thought, I'm not doing anything. And I think the heater, you probably had to put coins in to make the heater work. This was like very post-World War II, London, piss in the hallways. It was gnarly.
This is back to your story.
It was a long bike ride.
Man, how long does it take you to ride your bike that entire distance?
I think I gave myself a ton of time, but I think it was like it's probably about 4.5 hours. It wasn't crazy.
That's awesome, man. How long have you? I mean, you're in great shape, right? Absolutely. No, I mean, the moment I saw you get out of the car, I was like, man, you're doing something right.
I ain't getting any fucking younger, so you gotta,
I mean, but I think that as people age, you can kind of go one of two routes, right? You can take care of yourself or not take care of yourself. And riding a bicycle, especially long distances like you do, is so great for your cardiovascular health, your mental health, and your overall well-being. Is this something that you've been doing for a long time?
I started out running, which I still do, when I was about 22, maybe 21. Or
Okay.
So. Like it was one of those things in school running. Remember, it was a punishment.
Yes.
The coach would be like, "All right, ladies, stop playing grab ass. We're gonna run fucking laps," and you hated it. And you would, and I had no interest in cross country or anything like that. I was just like, "Oh, it's awful." And then when I got in my early 20s, I was like, I was like, oh, I just can't drink beer and go to Fatburger all the time. All of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm heavier than I want to be. So I was like, fuck this.
Yeah.
So I started running a bit. I mean, I remember the first time I ran, I'd gone out. There was a great pub in Hollywood called the Coach and Horses, which was just some of the things that happened there, it was a legend. But I remember going there, and I was drinking like Jack Daniels, and I smoked a cigarette the first time in my life. And the next day, I was like, "This is bullshit."
Oh.
So I went running, and I ran about 6 blocks to Ventura Boulevard, and just like fucking like dry heaved and sat on the curb 6 blocks. It was like a kilometer, and then limped back. And then the next day did more, and then fast forward a couple of years, like ran a marathon or did whatever. So kind of early on, I got my shit together.
Yeah.
Whereas some people, it's harder, when you're like 30, 40, 50.
Yes.
To then go run for the first time or something, and people do it. So,
of course.
You're never too.
No.
It's never too late.
No, you're never too old to start, taking care of yourself in fitness.
Yeah.
Before we got on the pod, we were like, talking about marathon. I had asked you, about your first marathon experience. Do you remember the feeling, what it felt like when you crossed that finish line?
Yeah, totally. It was a pretty funky day. Like it rained a bit, and I was woefully undertrained. I realized.
I love it.
You realize you realize 20 miles in, no matter how well trained you are, at 10K to go, it's gonna hurt.
Yes.
And if it doesn't hurt, you're not going hard enough. But if it's your first marathon, no matter how slow you go, it's gonna hurt.
Yes, yes.
And this was 1995, I think. So I remember, those were the days of power bars.
Yeah.
That's all they had. There was no gel, nothing like that.
Yeah.
And I remember I was bonking pretty hard because I got to mile 19 and I lost count. And I thought that was mile 20, and it was mile 19. And I was like, fuck. And it was Hollywood. It was right in Hollywood Boulevard, by the Supply Sergeant surplus store, which still is there, which is great. And I remember there were a bunch of portalettes, and I was like, I got to go take a leak. So I had grabbed, like in those days, they would take a power bar, and I don't know if they would use just like a fucking meat cleaver and chop it into like 6 pieces. And so it would still have the foil on it. So it was sanitary. And I remember grabbing, it was a chocolate power bar, and I grabbed it. And it was cold that day. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna eat this and take a pee and get my shit together and finish. And I remember I put it in my mouth, and the thing was just rock hard and stone cold. And I remember I probably got maybe 1 calorie from just osmosis through my tongue. And then I just remember leaning forward in the toilet going, and just letting it drop into the toilet. And it was like, oh God, I got to finish this thing on because I didn't know about hydration or fueling or anything.
Yes. Yeah.
And I got done and was really beat up. And it was kind of drizzling and shitty. And I remember it finished, and I think you could check your bags and things at the sports arena. So I remember being in the sports arena sort of corridors, because I think I'd seen like Aerosmith and a bunch of bands there. And I just remember sitting there and just being just fucked. And then there was no subway or anything back then, but I remember getting into my car. And the worst thing about the marathon was having to drive home, because it was bumper to bumper traffic, and you're on and off the brake, and my legs were so thrashed, because I think I'd run like 2 hours of my life before that.
Yes.
And I started crying in the car. I was just bawling but everyone I know, the first marathon, you pretty much cry. That's what
Bring
happens.
it in, man. Bring it in.
And you're like crying for I don't even know what, kittens, and you just lose it. But yeah, I was like, oh, and on the 110 or something. Now I would cry like that just sitting in that traffic.
Yes. It's so true.
No, but it was, yeah, it's a cool thing.
No, it really is, man. It got me first off pumped up because 2 things is that I didn't train. I've told the story ad nauseum. I don't need to go over, but yeah, I definitely didn't train. I didn't even think I was going to run it. But yeah, we didn't train really at all. He trained a little bit more than me. But that feeling of crossing the finish line and those tears, 100%, because I mean, such a small, you don't think of this at the time, but in retrospect, such a small percentage of humanity will ever do something like that.
Yeah.
Right. And it just goes to show that when you think your tank is done, you've got so much more to go. Right. But it's mind over matter in that situation, because like you said, by the 20th mile, especially not being trained, but just in general, every step you take hurts.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Every movement, but you continue to push and you don't give up. And so it's just this feat that you're like, shit, man, if I can do this, I can do anything, right? Like, and it's such a great experience for anyone listening. If you have the ability to do it, right? I mean, freaking do it, man. I mean, I know that you even said like the LA marathon's changed, and we're fortunate that we live out here and that, but like just even all the things that you see and how everything's blocked down. But what struck me funny was the power bar, right?
Yeah.
And for you, right? Because like I remember as a kid, like shit, I wish they had the banana power bar still. Those were my favorite.
I liked whatever I think there was the malt flavor or something.
Okay.
Like the original.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sure
yeah,
that's
yeah.
gone now.
Yeah. Oh no, I think they're all gone. I love the texture of it.
Is Power Bar is gone now?
Will you check that out, Tyler? Type it. I'm sure. I think they make like gels and things like that now.
Yeah, I think I have not seen one of those bars in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, there's like Cliff bars and
there's
Rogue bars.
Yeah, they have bars, but
Yeah, like Alpha Line makes bars.
there was a brand called Power Bar.
Oh yeah, Power Bar. Yeah.
We pull it up on the screen real quick. Just because I want to be like, I remember.
They'll pull a fucking Crown out though. Those old ones.
Oh
now.
my God! Yes.
No, you
yeah.
I would never touch one. No.
100%. But it's just like, that texture was.
Yeah. They have the Protein Plus ones.
Well,
still.
Okay, yeah, but not the ones that we're talking about.
The classic ones in
the
the foil.
classic in the foil. Yeah, it was. But now, I mean, my gosh, you're running, and there is probably 100,000 people on the streets, and they're
that's
handing,
really cool.
I mean, and they're just lifting you up and guiding you along, and they're handing this out and that out, and I mean, we thought we had to get gel packs and all that stuff, and so we had it packed in, but they have everything there for you.
Yeah, you can go light. There's no.
I mean,
I used to keep some gels on me just because I was like, I gotta have the ones that I'm used to.
Yes,
but you could go out there with nothing, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, you could go literally out there with nothing and get fed for the day. Shit, man. So that's awesome, and it's great that you have kept it up. Do you like still continuously run like on a weekly basis, or?
You know, I'm hit and miss with it. I'll run a lot more on tour because it's. I mean, I have a bike that lives in Europe, and I'll ride that, and I'll bring a bike in the States. But it, you know, we just did a bunch of fly dates and stuff, so that was. I just ran, so
Okay.
I keep that up. But I mean, I haven't. The last marathon I ran was actually LA in 2013.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, I'll let the running slide, and I'll do cycling, or I'll just do like mondo hikes and stuff like that. But once Bad Religion goes back on the road, or when I was in the cult, whatever, I would run. Or
Yeah.
if I did like a 3 or 4 week trip with my son in Europe last year, so I'd let he's 14, so he'd sleep till noon. So
Yes.
I'd wake up and go run like 15 or 20K.
Damn.
And then we'd cruise around and walk another 15 or 20K.
Wow.
Through the thing. But so yeah, so I keep it, but I will let it go kind of fallow, because I figure if I can take a break off running after maybe doing a tour of like 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks or whatever, the chance of getting an injury gets reduced.
Yes.
So I definitely because if I just keep hammering it at home and get injured and then have to go on tour and no, I can't run, I'll flip out.
Yeah.
So I want to try to avoid getting. I mean, I've had very few injuries in 30 plus years of running, but you get older and
It's
you don't want like a shitty injury where you're on tour and you're like you can't do anything.
yes. Yeah, that's hard, man. I mean, what would you have to like be posted up on like a stool or something like that to play? Like, what would you do?
I had a hip injury before we went on the road in 2019, and it was the most painful thing I ever had. Like it was brutal. I was in the pool for a month. I broke down. I bought the the kind of aqua jogger vest,
Okay.
and went to the local pool and did aqua jogging. And the kid that was the lifeguard immediately was like, "Injured runner, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He said, I run cross country. And he said I had a stress fracture right before nationals, and I did just what you were doing, and I was able to pull it together and go do it.
Damn,
So
nice.
so I spent like a month there, and I probably had a stress fracture. And what was my point? Where did we
Well,
go?
because I asked you if you ever if you were performing, like, would you have to
Oh,
lean up
yeah.
against something?
So we did right at the beginning of this, like right when it was coming on, I was like, well, I'm gonna keep riding the bike, and I was like, this thing hurts enough that riding the bike's probably not even good. Like I need to be weightless in water, and I was like, this is fucked. So we played a show at the Roxy, and I mean, my hip was just, going up and down the stairs to the dressing room was just, I felt like a 100-year-old person. It was insane. And I was in agony, and I didn't want to say anything to anyone because no one cares, because you got an injury that's, due to your hobby or whatever, like
Yes.
tough shit. And the guy must have weighed like 350 pounds, skinhead, jumped on stage and just came barreling towards me. I was like,
No.
if this fucking guy knocks me down or bumps into me and I have to put weight on that hip, I'm gonna collapse. And he did. Someone like interdicted and got him out of the way. But it was one of those things where like if someone just bumped into me,
Yes.
I would just be So I was like, oh God, I can't go on tour like this. So fortunately we had a few weeks off and I did the pool. By the time we went on the road, the pain had subsided. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I would have been guy on a stool. Had that
Wow. Yeah, that would have sucked,
had
man.
that pachyderm taken me down, dude, I would.
Damn, you got lucky. Shit.
I saw him coming though, and I was just like, oh, please don't do this.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing with running and cycling. It happens to the best of us as we age with our knees and everything like that. But
Well, cycling, you just get hit by a car.
well, that's
That's the real annoying.
yes, absolutely. But to stay active, to stay
Right.
moving, to continue to push yourself. You want to fix those real quick? Yeah, getting back into it. It's very, very important to continue to do something. Even if it's 20 minutes, 3 times a week, right?
Yeah,
just
yeah.
10 minutes, 3 times, just like a body in motion is so good, right? And even, it's like, I don't have money for a gym. That's right. You have your body weight squats, push-ups,
Yeah,
things like
absolutely.
that. Just continuing. And I mean, especially for you and your career and your body is constantly moving. I find it absolutely incredible seeing, some of you guys out there as you guys get older, still being able to do the shit that you guys do. It's really, it's quite amazing. For people just finally tuning in 15 minutes into it, do you mind doing kind of like a brief introduction of who you are?
Sure. I'm Mike Dimkich, and I play guitar in Bad Religion since 2013.
Damn, that's awesome, man.
And before that, I played in the Cult for a really long time. So,
when people hear those two names, right? Bad Religion, Cult, like they're like larger than life bands that I grew up on, especially Bad Religion. For you looking back at your own life, like where did this all start, as far as like playing music? How did you get into it? And how did it begin?
geez, I mean, when I was in grade school, I would watch reruns of the Monkees show, and they had great songs. I liked the Beatles. My mom was super into music. Like she had a pretty cool record collection. She liked all the hippie stuff, Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Yeah.
But she also dug. I mean, she loved the Eagles, and I liked the Eagles too.
Yes, come on.
I had the 8-track of, I think, The Long Run. I bought it at a garage sale. And but she was into like Bowie and Iggy Pop and stuff. So she was hip to stuff. And she was a single mother. So at some point, once she kind of settled down with a regular boyfriend, it was a musician from Texas, a guy named Jack, who was like a really nice guy, and he was a blues guitar player. So, and he was a computer programmer, and it's funny, he actually worked in Newhall.
Out here.
He worked for Sperry Univac, which was like the original computer.
No way. Yes.
And they had an office at Rye Canyon.
Okay.
That.
Yeah.
So he knew that I dug music, and when I first heard the first band that really kind of blew my mind, that wasn't the Beatles or earlier stuff like that, is I think I saw the B-52s and the Specials on Saturday Night Live within a week or two of each other.
Okay.
And I was just like, God damn! Like I mean, they were rocking.
Yeah.
The Specials thing was amazing. So I kind of really got into that ska revival and the B-52s, but I also had seen a Cramps video, and I was just like, this is insane. And I'd heard of the Sex Pistols and stuff like that, but those were actually the first, sort of, not punk bands, but, and this was like 1980, so the Sex Pistols were broken up and stuff. So, but I quickly was like, holy mackerel, I bought the Sex Pistols record. It blew my mind.
Yeah.
And then I was in 7th grade maybe, and there was a guy maybe in 8th grade who was like, oh, you should get the first Clash record. And then I probably bought maybe the first the Germs GI record. I know I had the Black Flag Jealous Again EP. I kind of bought that, and I went and saw some hardcore shows at I think the Santa Monica Civic. I know I saw Black Flag, probably DOA, the Adolescents, and the Circle Jerks, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And it was pretty gnarly. I was just like, Jesus Christ. It wasn't, I was much more into the English stuff, like the rock. In the end, I realized I liked the rock and roll punk rock. Yeah. And the West Coast hardcore stuff, I mean, there's some great songs in there, but it was kind of what we had, but I was like, it's not quite. I think I like the bands that are broken up now. The Clash were still going.
Yeah.
And I want to say a year or so after that, I had a buddy at the same school who was a few years older, and he had a Vespa, so he could drive us places. So we went and saw Bow Wow Wow's first show in the States at the Roxy, and that was super great. Wow. And that was better than. So I just was more into the English bands and the rock and roll bands, and then I started doing the homework, where Steve Jones from the Sex Pistols would talk about Johnny Thunders and the New York Dolls and the Heartbreakers, and then I went back and bought those records. And the funny thing is, I remember buying the first Dolls record. You know, it had the iconic cover of them in drag, and I was 13 or whatever, 14, and I was so freaked out to buy that record because I mean it's so ridiculous. But you're you're this 14-year-old kid. You've never had sex. You don't know what's going on.
No.
And you have this record, and you're like, am I gay because I'm buying this record? I remember I bought the record, and you could also buy blank white sleeve for records. And I bought the white sleeve and then put it in there so I wouldn't have this like shame of that. And of course, I don't think it was more than a couple months, and I fucking had the record.
Yes.
I was looking at Johnny Thunders with the French loaf down the front of his pants, and like, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Yes.
But yeah, it's so funny that that you're like. Granted, I'd had the Village People's YMCA Macho Man 45s when I was young.
I know,
and that didn't even register.
That's okay. That's like, okay, but not
the New York
that.
Dolls was like, So, and then from there, I Get Your Eyes Out, Stones, Keith Richards, Chuck Berry, and you just go backwards.
Okay.
And this was, I mean, I hate to be the guy that like, these kids today, it's so easy. Back then, you couldn't Google Green Day and then see the way to go, which I still think is great now because any kid worth his salt who digs Green Day is going to end up at the Pistols and the Dolls.
100%. 100%. 100%.
And so that's why when people moan about Green Day, I'm like, shut up.
Yeah,
because
literally.
it's exactly the same as if someone, didn't, my mom's boyfriend, he appreciated the Sex Pistols and Steve Jones guitar playing, but he knew I was going to end up back at Chuck Berry. And you know what I mean?
For sure.
So he wasn't going to poo-poo the Pistols.
No, of course.
So when people bitch about...
Whatever it is, fill in the blank. Fill in the blank. Like literally fill in the blank.
It's like, because the hip kid is going to go to the roots.
Of course. Absolutely.
And the kid who's not going that deep was the same kid that was in the Sex Pistols and then just, didn't check the roots out.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
So, and I just think it's, if someone's really into it, you do the history.
Of course. I mean, it's just like, are you doing it because you actually love the music, or is it because it's cool today, right? You know? And, that's why I think it's like so great, like when, households play so many different genres of music. Like, my father introduced me everyone, from the Eagles to the Temptations to, and everything in between, right? And, my mother introduced me to this whole new world. And then my brother introduced me to everyone from Dr. Dre to Sublime, right? And then as I got older, I got into like NoFX and all these bands. And then I got into like techno music. And now it's just like, as an adult, right, my palette for music is so diverse where, some kids, maybe you're not introduced to this or that, and their palette of music is very, one-sided. And I think having a good palette of music, it kind of opens your eyes and ears to, the diversity of life, right? Because there is so much out there. And the same parents that were, telling the hippies to cut their hair and, suck it up are the same parents that, told their kids to, turn off, Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre, right?
Yeah.
So, and pick up your pants, right? So, instead of like embracing it and, I mean, I just kind of look back at my own, like when I started, before I got into bands per se, I was like DJing, and some of the music was like hardcore techno, and my parents embraced it and bought me turntables and allowed me to, bump the music that was, and then my dad would come into my room and we'd listen to the Eagles and talk about the history and all that, so it was just like, I think that's, very, very important as a parent to, embrace, what your kid is into and as well as influence them,
Yeah, I mean, and at the very least, you can't. If you don't understand the music or you don't like it, then
that's fine.
let
That's
them do
fine.
their thing. Like,
Of course.
it's not like my son's into TikTok. And it's
Yeah.
like I don't get it,
Yeah.
but it's not my job to get it.
No, it's not. It's
like,
not.
Kids you guys do your thing.
Absolutely.
And I'll kind of bring stuff up, but I'm not going to shut down any. So that'd be the same thing if your kid's into something, if they're into something that's bad for them.
Well, for
step
sure.
in.
Yeah.
But obviously music and stuff like that, you just, and it it's not up to the older generation to get it.
No, it's
and if you
not.
get it, that's great. But what you can do is just let them do their thing.
Of course. And sometimes you can find common ground because, like, I remember times like, my brother and I, or, especially like me, I'd be listening to like a hip hop song and the sample of the song, my dad would know what that was.
Exactly.
And then he'd introduce me as, I was like, oh shit. And I'd fall in love with that,
Yeah.
So it was just like, you can find, commonality in all of these different types of things. And just like you said, as long as it's not hurting them, like, it's not at the end of the day, they're a human being, right? But like kind of bringing it back to your story, right, is like, okay, so you got into these different types of bands, but like, when did you pick up your first musical instrument?
It's funny, I think of things like grades. So I think it was probably at some point, I think in 7th grade, probably. Because my mom's boyfriend, by this point, we'd moved to the Valley, and there were guitars around the house, and I was just like, this is awesome. So I was like, would you teach me some chords on the guitar? And he did. And I would go, and he would, we're still in touch. He lives outside of Austin now. He moved back to Texas, and he would go figure out a Sex Pistols song for me, the chords, but he was also very much like, I'll help you figure the chords out, but I'm gonna also help you so you can figure the chords out, and so you can understand, like, do you hear that? That's an open A chord, or like the intro to oh God, what's the Beatles song? Day Tripper. He's like, do you hear that string ringing? It's an open D string, I think it was, but he taught me that. But there were guitars around the house, so I started. I think I learned D, C, and G, which is funny because when I got in the cult, like almost all the songs were D, C, and G.
That's so funny.
It's like, shit, I've been playing this since I was 13.
It's full circle.
And now I'm getting paid to do that. So that's where it kind of kicked off. And once I started, playing guitar and practicing, that's all I did. And so I had to borrow guitars, but I wanted a Les Paul because he didn't own a Les Paul. He had a Strat. There's a couple Strats around. And I think the first guitar I really played a bunch was a Dan Electro, an old one, which is funny because that's what Jimmy Page would play live on, I think, Kashmir. They're probably worth way too much money now, but then it was, like this shitty 1960 Sears guitar.
It's so funny.
But I remember it had a pretty thin neck, so that was a lot easier to play. And I knew I wanted to get a Les Paul, so I kind of hit up my mom, and my folks are divorced, so I hit up my dad as well. I was like, look, I'm getting straight A's. If I keep this up, can you guys pitch in and get me a Les Paul? And I know they were new. It was like $500 new from a store, which I don't know why I bought a new one, because back then out of the recycler they were like $200. Because Gibson was making such shitty guitars then. It was the Norlin era, and they were god awful guitars. I should have bought one out of their side. I probably, Jesus, $500. I probably could have bought it like a '68 Gold Top, but whatever.
Yeah, you're a kid though. You want the new?
You could buy like a flame top back then for like $10,000.
Jesus. And what do they go for now?
I mean, the greeny Les Paul was $1 million.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, you
hindsight.
didn't know.
Yeah, I could have predicted.
Of course, Bitcoin, it's like you never know.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, if I'd said, Mom, if you give me $15,000 to buy this guitar, it will be worth $250,000 in 20 years.
Yeah,
It's like she probably made $15,000 a year.
of course.
Our car was probably $3,000. So
That's crazy.
So I got the Les Paul because I got good grades, and then went about forming a band.
Wow.
And I had my buddy, and I was like, "Well, you play bass." He was tall, so it was kind of like play bass because
Yep. Tall guys.
Yeah, generally tall guys play bass. Because you can't, if you're super tall, you can't play guitar.
Yeah.
That just looks
Why?
weird. I don't know,
It
it looks weird.
Yeah.
I mean, name me like a really tall guitar player.
No, because it's different, especially like the way you hold it and the pluck the strings.
I
right?
think the only guy is, oh God,
How tall is Slash?
he's 5'9".
Man, his hat makes him so much
Yeah,
taller.
no, he's not. John Mayer, he's kind of tall,
Okay. Yeah.
and that's it. Doesn't.
Yeah,
work.
but he's not known for his. Yeah, I mean, he's a good guitar player, but
Yeah, he's whatever.
he's fine.
Yeah.
I think when I think of John Mayer, I think of singing. I guess not.
But I mean, he's the only one I can think of.
Yeah.
But
How tall is Clapton? Is Clapton short?
he's normal. I
Normal,
think.
okay.
Keith's pretty small.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, once you get over like 5'11", I think 6 foot's probably the maximum.
How tall was Hendrix?
I don't think he was. He was just. I think he was probably 5'9" or 10. He's a
Yeah.
little guy.
Yeah. Can you look that up real quick as we continue to run? Thank you.
I'm gonna go 5'9.5" tops.
Okay, I say 5'8".
5'10".
Okay, there we go. Because Mitch Mitchell was tiny.
Okay, look this word. Tallest guitar player. Tallest professional
Tallest good
player.
guitar player.
Yeah.
David Green. Standing at an impressive 7 feet. Do you guys recognize that?
No.
Nope. Tallest famous guitar player. Just try that real quick.
Yeah, David Green.
Okay.
He's in front of a big crowd.
I don't know who this David Green
Yeah, I
is.
don't know who he's. Watch, he's like this.
It's not Peter Green.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Tyler.
So, so I got my buddy in on bass. There was another kid in the grade. I think he was a grade above me. He was English. So he was the singer, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I think his neighbor played drums. I'm still in touch with him as well. And we formed a band. So I know our first show was, I think it was like April. I don't know why I remember that, but it was of 8th grade. So that might be 82. And it was a school talent show.
Okay.
And that was like my first gig. And, just didn't look back from there. And then was just really, obsessed with a band. And we rehearse every weekend. And, I think we'd play some school parties and stuff. But I was very uptight about it. I was probably kind of a taskmaster. Because I remember the drummer who we got a different drummer at this point. The other guy got into go-kart racing and then actually became like a race mechanic. So he kind of found his passion.
Good.
So we got another drummer, kind of poached him from the other band in school. But he would like, fight with his sister and get grounded and couldn't rehearse. I was just like, dude, this is, you can't fucking, you got to be serious.
We got
about
big
this.
things going on, man.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what they were, but I was
Yeah,
like,
I
we
know.
just have to rehearse and,
Yes.
and and get better. So yeah, I just carried on with that, I guess, through high school and stuff.
What was the name?
I don't even think we had a name.
All right.
Because we didn't really do shows.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
you're 13, 14.
Yeah.
I had a band through high school, like 11th grade, 10th, 11th grade. No name. We just rehearsed. That's kind of all you did.
Yes. Yeah.
But I do remember that a grade or two above us was this guy, Craig Ross, and he was in a band called The Broken Homes, and they had a record deal, which was like
Huge.
mind-blowing.
Yeah.
He's Lenny Kravitz's guitar player now.
Oh, no way. All right.
And I remember I'd see him, and I'd just be like, they have a record deal. Like that was like you won the lottery, which,
Yes.
of course, now you realize that's like buying a lottery ticket.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to, getting a record deal was just would be like getting brought up from the minor leagues as a pitcher.
Yeah.
You may never play a game.
Yeah, is that crazy?
Don't think you've made it.
No.
But back then, and I think they did 3 albums for MCA, which is,
Wow, that's good.
and those were the days where they
Yeah.
would like really dig in and they would put bands on tour. So I was like, he's got a record deal. Wow. So right around this time, I've got this band going on, and it was very like Johnny Thunder's Heartbreakers. That's absolutely what it was. Like we had like the hairdos. I had a Les Paul Jr. by this point.
Okay.
That was $300. God damn. and I sold it for $300. But I bought it and had a 1960s Fender Bassman or a Twin. Like those were the days, man.
Yeah.
Recycler, $200 for an amp, $300 for a 1960 Les Paul Jr.
Imagine if you still had that stuff.
I know. I mean, I bought another better Junior that looked the same, however many years later, and it was a killer deal, but it was 12 times the price.
Isn't that crazy, man?
But I mean, I couldn't see the future.
No,
And
of course.
And it had a really skinny, wobbly neck. It might have been a 61 even. So the neck was too skinny.
You want another one?
I'm good. Still working this one. But so around this point, I had always really been into the Sex Pistols, and Steve Jones was my guitar idol. And he had the band The Professionals after the Sex Pistols, which I loved. Then that band broke up, and he ended up in a band called Checkered Past that had a couple guys from Blondie, the singer Michael DeBar. And they came to LA, and he kind of decamped to LA. So I would see them play and kind of got friendly with him because I was just, the kid that would bug him all the time and ask him questions about guitars and things like that. So at some point, that band imploded because he'd had a heroin problem for quite a long time. So I don't remember how I ran into him again, but he'd gotten sober, just barely. And I think he saw me. We bumped into each other somewhere, and he was like, "All right, the fan kid has a car and a guitar and a Fender Twin. Like, that might be helpful." So he'd put a band together. It was just they would play the Central, which became the Viper Room. But I mean, they'd play on a Tuesday night to like 10 people. So I was more than happy to loan him my stuff and drive him around, and just kind of be his little like personal assistant. I was thrilled. And he was a lovely guy. So he kind of then, would sort of humor me and show me licks, and we'd hang out and stuff like that. And that kind of sparked a friendship that, we're still friends. But kind of from there, at some point he got a solo deal, and I want to say on his maybe his second record, he let me audition for the band. I don't know how that went.
Really?
I crashed the audition. I was 20 or 21. And my buddy, who was a few years older, was going to move to Germany. And he was actually the guitar player in Channel 3, Jay Lansford. And he had joined the Unforgiven, and he was going to move to Germany. He'd met a woman there, and he was like, "I'm moving to Germany. I'm done with LA." And he had gotten a nod for the audition for the Steve Jones thing. And he knew, he's like, "You're the guy that should do it. But why don't you come with me? Learn the songs, and we'll both go audition." Because they actually might want 2 guitar players in addition to Steve.
Shit.
So I just showed up, and Steve's like, "What are you doing here, mate?" And I was like, "I don't know." But he let me audition. And me and my buddy auditioned. And Steve called me back a few days later. It was like, "Why don't you come down, for like a second audition?" And I couldn't believe it. And long story short, I went through the whole thing, and I got the gig.
Wow.
And I was thrilled. And it was Steve's very super long hair period. Everyone had long hair. And it was, so from that, we...
And what was the name of the band at the time?
It was just called Steve Jones Band.
Okay.
And the record was Fire and Gasoline, which is, it's a good record. I mean, it's very of its time.
Of course.
But we went on the road opening for Ian Hunter McRonson Band, which was super cool because I got to see Mick Ronson play every night.
That's awesome.
And he was a lovely guy. We also did some opening shows for The Cult.
Wow.
And that's where I got to meet those guys.
Okay.
And that was basically, once I sort of was in that circle, that kind of was the next step up.
Yeah.
And then I want to say maybe around 1993, I was in a band called High City Miles that later morphed into a band called Sucker Punch that got a record deal and put a record out. But
And you were part of that band?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to say around 93, I showed up early to rehearsal, which kind of shocking, but I was early. And Billy Duffy was there. And he comes out and he was like, "Oh, what are you doing, Mick?" And I love the fact that like English guys will call a guy named Michael Mick.
That's so funny.
Which is just like Mick Jones, Mick Taylor. I was like, "I'm Mick."
Yeah, you got fucking made it.
I'm Mick.
I'm Mick and made it.
Mick Dimkich. Doesn't really roll, but whatever.
Yeah, still.
So he was like, "Oh, what are you up to, mate?" I said, "Oh, I'm rehearsing here." He was like, "Oh, you've got a band?" And we were chatting. And he said, "Well, look, mate, we're going on the road this summer opening for Metallica. And I'm thinking we might need like a second guitar player to fill things out. Like, what are you doing this summer?" And I'm thinking, I don't know. So he goes, "Here's my number." He gives me his phone number on a scrap of paper. And I remember thinking, "Oh, that's kind of cool, but I'm loyal to my band. Like, we're gonna gig this summer." We kind of had a residency at like this really cool shitty bar on Western called the White Horse. Like it was it was gnarly. Like we actually paid the gang there was called the White Fence Gang.
Okay.
And we would give them like $50 to make sure no one's cars got broken into that came to see us.
Okay.
And it made perfect sense. And the bar was run by I think like a Croatian or Czechoslovakian couple. And when they found out like my family was Serbian, they were all into the whole Balkan connection.
Yeah,
they loved me.
Yeah.
So it was really fun. Like it was $3 at the door. We'd put bands on and we would headline. And so we were doing that kind of for the summer. So, our hope was to grow a scene actually there, like our own. Because I remember we would just go there and have drinks because it was like $2, and they had a dance floor in the corner. I was like, to the singer, other guitar player in the band, I was like, "Tim, we could set up on that dance floor. Why don't we do our own fucking thing? Like forget the teaser or whatever was going on. Let's do our own thing." And the funny thing is, it turned into a thing beyond us. Like when we stopped playing there was live music there. So
That's crazy.
we kind of, but it was one of those things where that's how all the cool clubs in LA started.
Wait. You got really?
I forgot about that. Well, a lot of the underground clubs like the Scream and all these things, they started out in weird multi-use spaces. Wow. And somebody would just sort of take the chance and be like, "Hey, how much do you need for us to have your club for the night? Does it have a beer and wine license or whatever?" And people started clubs out of that. So we just wanted to have a showcase where we could play shows.
Yeah.
And people could come and beers were $2. And I think we said to the owners, like, "Look, let us keep the door. People will buy more drinks from you than you're going to have on any night of the week." I don't think we took the door money. I don't think we paid them anything. We just said, "Look, you're going to make a shit ton of money at the bar.
Yeah.
Let us do one Friday night and we'll reconvene." And they were like, "Oh my God, this is great." And we'd make a few bucks and they would give us, I remember they had a popcorn machine, so they would give us like a bowl of popcorn. But once they found the Serbian thing, the sandwiches started coming out.
Yeah.
So that was going on. And
I love that.
so Billy gives me his number, and I didn't call it for a couple weeks.
No way.
And then the backstory is maybe 6 months or a year earlier, my mom had died of cancer. And I now had the house, and I'm, I don't know, 23 or something. And I have a house. I'm like, I got to pay property taxes. I got to pay, like, what the fuck? And I remember there was a stack of medical bills from her, all these surgeries and hospice. Fucking bills are pouring in. And I got Billy Duffy's number. I'm like, get his answer machine. I'm like, "Hey, Billy, it's Mikey. Like, give me a buzz about that gig thing." And he rang me back. And they were recording a new record at Sound City. And he said, "Why don't you come down and audition?" So I just went down and we actually just auditioned in the actual recording, the big studio.
Yeah.
And I think Ian sat outside and listened, and he was terribly intimidating, which is funny because he later became like my best, ally in the band and friend. But yeah, I don't think he spoke a word. And I was like, Billy's only suggestion was make sure you wear black jeans, wear black pants. I was like, or black. So I think I don't think I owned a pair of black jeans. I went to
No?
I went to Aardvark in Canoga Park. I bought some black Levi's, and I had like a black Hanes, and wore that and auditioned, and then didn't hear anything for about a week or so, and then I got home from a run. Or I was going to Cal State Northridge actually at the time still.
Wow.
So I probably got home from school, and on my answering machine it was like, "Hey, it's Billy. You got the gig. Like, do you have a passport?" And I was just like, "Holy shit!" And I had to go. I think I had to go get a new passport. I had one, but I had to get a new one. And it was May of '93. And the tour was we were going to rehearse in the States for like a week, and then I think go to London and rehearse for another week. I mean, those were the heady days of like they'd put you up in some swank hotel in London to go rehearse for a week. You know what I mean?
So cool.
Spending probably thousands doing this.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I realized I had to leave school 2 weeks early, but I didn't give a shit. I was leaving school 2 weeks early. So I went to all my professors and said, "Here's the deal. I'm going to go play soccer stadiums with the cult opening for Metallica." Every one of the teachers was like, "You're already getting an A. Of course, you can take the final early. Don't even worry about it." The only guy that was semi-uncool was my Spanish teacher, who said, "I'm going to give you an incomplete, and you can come back and take the final." What? And I remember when I was in Spain, I was speaking Spanish fluently, and I was just thinking like,
what a dick.
I mean, I went back and got the A.
Oh, you did? Good job.
Yeah.
Good job. Yeah.
But, it was, but all the other teachers were like, "Dude,
I mean, come on.
go for it."
Come on.
But it paid because I was getting A's anyway, so it wasn't like I was a deadbeat. I was a
No.
good student, so they were like, "Dude, you got to go take this job."
100%. Did you realize 23 years old, the magnitude of what this opportunity was?
No idea. Like, I got to do the math now. If that was 93, I was 25. So I was
25. Going to 2 stadiums around the world.
I didn't have a clue. And I mean, the first show I did was, I'm pretty sure it was Hanover, because my buddy who took me to the Steve Jones gig, who didn't take the gig, now lived in Hanover. So he came. I remember the night before we all went and jammed in his band's rehearsal place, and we played, I know we played a Social Distortion song. I remember that.
Wow.
But we played a bunch of songs, and then the next day, I played at whatever the big soccer stadium was, and it was just nuts. Like I wasn't nervous actually. It was
Seriously? Will you pull up? It was in Hanover.
It was Hanover.
Hanover. Look up Hanover Soccer Stadium.
It would have been May of '93. It was Metallica, and their tour was the Nowhere Else to Roam tour. I remember that because they had toured Europe for like 2 years on the Black Album.
Okay,
I
yeah.
think it was the Black Album.
Gosh.
So at this point, we were playing some really like weird markets.
Right there.
That shot down in the lower left corner,
Right there.
actually, the one where you can sort of see. Yeah, that's what I remember looking up and just seeing that huge, kind of scaffolding, and and that big open thing, and being like, God, this is bizarre. But yeah, it was. But you're so removed from it. You're just like.
I mean, but you're 25, man. Like you went from building this thing, right, which was cool,
Yeah.
right, to then
Getting plugged into a band that was. I mean, they were definitely like Sonic Temple was this, Ceremony was this. We were touring on a greatest hits thing called Pure Cult, and they were. I mean, their states and their. They were on the down. I mean, Bill even said to me, he goes, "You got in just as the wheels were falling off."
okay.
But we still could play arenas in Europe.
I mean, that's fine. The wheels falling off if you're playing there. I don't
Yeah,
care.
we were
if you're
still we were still moving pretty quick.
I
It was
mean,
great.
shit, man. I mean, do you remember? I know it's been a while, but that, like, walking out onto that stage that first night, like,
Yeah,
in front of tens of thousands of people.
I just remember hoping I wouldn't fuck up or anything,
Yeah.
I do remember there was one section of a song where, because I'd never been on a, like a stadium stage, and there were no inner monitors or anything then. It was just, wedges, which is what I still use actually. But
Oh, really?
it was very much, you realized you could play a different song from the rest of the band and not necessarily know it. And there was one section of a song where I know I just was like playing the wrong thing, but that was really my biggest cock up was that, and no one noticed.
Really?
But it was probably 2 bars. I mean, that was the biggest mistake I'd made. No, so it was like, job well done. I was like, oh God, that, I think I knew those songs, like I really, really buckled down and learned a bunch of songs for the audition.
Yeah.
And you heard them so much in clubs that
Yes.
it didn't take much because you knew Wildflower, Little Devil, She Sells Sanctuary. There were only a couple new songs. Like everything else was already in the memory banks.
Yes.
And you just had to figure the chords out and you knew where to go.
We said it was on the Greatest Hits tour, essentially.
Yeah. We actually played a couple songs that they were recording for that record, which was kind of interesting.
Oh, that's cool.
And then they came out later on a record just called The Cult, and very different versions. But it was kind of, that's very 70s, where they were playing unreleased material live. No one does that now.
Oh, that's so true.
That's what bands used to do. Like Humble Pie would be like, this is this is coming out next month.
No way.
Like, no, I don't think anyone does that anymore. Springsteen might. I don't know. I mean,
yeah, that's
very 70s.
Yeah, that's a move, man. That's a move. But yeah, so okay, so you go on this how do you remember how long the tour was? I mean,
yeah, it was I think it was going to be 3 months or something. It was a long, it was Metallica, and then we had a few shows with Guns N' Roses.
wow.
Which was kind of nuts. Then we were going to do a bunch of weeks with the Chili Peppers. But they had an interim guitar player, and they canceled.
No.
I mean, that was going to be...
That would have been...
I'm not a Chili Peppers fan, but I was 25 and single, and all I could think of was,
dude.
That's going to be fun. Because Metallica was all men. It was all boys. It was angry European metal guys. Guns N' Roses was a little more mixed, but Red Hot Chili Peppers, I was like, this is going to be like...
Yeah, chicks love it.
Yeah. Because the Metallica thing, it was dudes. And they didn't like the Cult.
Wow.
And you get in Germany, and at least it was kind of, what was really fun was like, it turned into an us against them mentality. Because Ian and I like suddenly bonded very quickly. And... he took abuse from these fans. I want to say 3 or 4 shows in, it was Mannheim. I remember. And we're playing, and the bass player, Craig Adams, had been in the Sisters of Mercy and the Mission, and he'd done festivals. He'd been around. So we're playing, and I remember something just like hit my arm, and it was wet. And I was just like, well, that's weird. And I was like, Craig, what was that? He's like, don't worry about it, mate. So we get off stage, and I go, what the fuck was that? He goes, oh, well, you've been baptized, mate. That was a bag of piss. And I was like, what? He said, yeah, all the sandwiches and things, they come in a bag. They eat them. The German fans are drunk. They got to pee somewhere. They pee in the bag. They don't like the Cult because we're, playing She Sells Sanctuary by the seashore. And they hurl bags of piss up.
Shut up.
So I got hit with a bag of piss. It was just in my arm. So... Yeah. I mean, so I was like, okay, I get this now. When I see stuff flying towards me, get out of the way.
Yes.
Because I don't want to take a bag of urine in the face.
Definitely not.
But it was kind of an eye-opener. Like that quickly disabused me of... Because by this point, we've been on the road for a week or two, and there's just a lot of guys, it was this, just for 40 minutes, like, fuck you. Like, they hated us.
And they knew that... But they still brought them on, the Cult, or like, who puts the tour? I mean, that's crazy.
I think the deal was Lars Ulrich... always wanted to do something that was like hip and edgy.
Yeah.
And he liked the Cult. And to his credit, he was like, I want to have a band, that I like opening.
I respect that.
Because they had opened for the Metallica in 89 or 90 during Sonic Temple. And it was brutal then too. Ian was like, it was fucking brutal. In the States, like playing in like Florida.
In the States too.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, they would play in Florida and shit like that. But whatever, it was, I think they probably paid the band well, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And you played to a lot of people. I mean, I didn't care. I was playing stadiums.
Dude, yeah. I mean,
and then we would do headlining stuff on off days, and we played velodromes and track and field. Like, I remember I didn't ride bikes then, and we played a stadium in, I want to say like Valencia, not Valencia here.
Yeah.
The cool Valencia.
Yes.
The good Valencia. The Valencia with an accent mark.
Yeah.
Valencia.
Valencia.
I think we played a velodrome there, but I remember I didn't ride bikes and I was like, what is this? Like, because it's these banked,
Yes.
crazy walls. So yeah, we would headline, smaller indoor arenas then, and it was great. And so fast forward, I don't know, a month or so into the tour, and the band's manager came out to see us, and we were playing Torino, Italy. And this was a real metal sandwich, man. It was an Italian band called Extrema.
Okay.
It was Megadeth.
Okay.
It was us, and then Metallica.
No way.
Like, which one of these does not fit?
Yes. Yes.
This was just like fucking square peg, round hole.
Definitely.
And we'd done and the funny thing is actually Suicidal Tendencies were the opening act.
Wow.
Then it was us. Then it was Metallica for most of the shows. But this Italian thing, and the Suicidal guys were great. Like Robert Trujillo turned me on to drinking fiber drinks on tour.
Okay.
God bless him, a lovely guy.
Explain, like, what do you mean fiber drinks?
Metamucil would be the brand name, but he had like this sort of stuff you would buy at Erewhon that was just like sawdust.
Yes.
And I remember, I don't think I'd done one transatlantic flight before, but I was just constipated.
It happens every single time.
And I went to his room, and he was like, "Oh, do you want to get a beer or something?" I went to his room to meet him, and he was mixing this drink. I go, "What is that?" And he explained. I said, "Dude, I'm so constipated." He said, "Have a glass of this. It'll change your life." And I did. And I am not without the orange anywhere I go. It's just
no way. So anytime you travel, you bring it with you, or just in general
in life. It's
and do you drink it every day or?
And it's not a laxative. It's
No,
it's just a.
Yeah.
It's like eating 10 apples.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Oh, dude,
because that's especially during when I travel. I mean, my wife's always like, "What's wrong?"
It's the worst.
It is. Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Metamucil, and also if like doing marathons and things, you don't want to be monkeying around 5-10 miles in, using the toilet. Like do the Metamucil before the race, you're good to go.
Damn, man.
So Robert Trujillo, thank you. And then he later, of course, now is in Metallica. So
full circle, baby.
So
that's so cool.
Where the hell was I now?
We were talking about Valencia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Colts manager.
Yep.
I'm spacing on his name now. Really nice guy. I don't think he knew what to do with them. He shows up, and the band's now been on the road for like a month, and we've been getting, coins and bags of piss and soccer turf, like, because they lay plywood down in these soccer stadiums because the soccer pitch is not something that they want to have fucked up.
Definitely
That's got to be like €1 million worth of manicured grass.
100%.
We get to this gig in Italy, man, and these kids are losing their minds, and they've torn the plywood up, and this lovely pitch is just airborne. So we're backstage, and by this point, the dream's worn off, and I'm just like, here comes another 40 minutes of dodging missiles and piss.
It was
and
that
turf.
bad.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, let's get this done and go to the disco. Like this sucks. So there was a record company girl backstage. I don't know who it was, some just kind of random girl, and she had a plaid miniskirt on, and I was wearing leather pants, and I remember. We were fueled pretty seriously by, I remember large cans of Sapporo with vodka poured in.
Nice.
That was Billy Duffy's idea. He got sober after that tour.
Jesus Christ,
things got
dude.
Pretty nuts then.
Sapporo with
You would take a couple sips and pour the vodka in.
Dude, that's crazy.
But I mean,
you're young.
I mean, to Billy's credit, it's like, dude, if he had to do that tour sober, I couldn't even imagine just the amount of projectiles and stuff. So long story short, we're just back there drinking, and I see the mini skirt, and I was like, "Can I borrow your mini skirt?" And she was like, "Okay." She goes, "Well, I'm not going to run around with no skirt." I said, "You can wear my leather pants, and I'll wear your mini skirt." So I'm wearing the mini skirt, and I remember I'm wearing a pair of Santa Rosa motorcycle boots, which is what the Clash wore, and I don't, maybe a leather jacket or something. So I'm rolling around in the mini skirt, and Ian kind of notices this, and just before we go on, I look at Ian, and I'm kind of realizing, like, do I want to go on stage in like a Catholic schoolgirl mini skirt in front of these like frothing at the mouth Italian metal guys. And I said, Ian, if I change back into the leather pants, I'm going to lose face. Big, aren't I? And he goes, big time. And I said, okay, it's on.
You did it.
So we walk out on stage and the Cult's manager is side stage. And he's kind of like, and he just is like, what has happened? Like, who's this kid we got in the band? What is this? So we walk on stage, and I think we opened with Sanctuary.
Oh my God.
Because we used to open with a song called New York City, which was a pretty rockin' song, and then it turned into like, why pander to these people?
Nah,
Let's just
screw
be
it.
be ourselves.
Yeah, fuck that.
You know, like that really is just come out and be a reggae band. Do your thing. Don't,
Absolutely.
because you're not going to out Metallica.
No.
Metallica. So just be the Cult. So we open up with a ding, da ding, da ding, and they see me in this outfit, and they hear that, and they just lose their fucking minds, and just bottles, turf, you know, anything that was nailed down just came flying on stage.
Oh my
And
God.
I remember I was just kind of,
Oh my
it was like
God.
Sid Vicious in Texas, so, you know, bring it on.
Yeah.
And I was like, bring it on. And within like 2 songs, like I think like they were enraged at what they were seeing. And I want to say in the first or second song, I went over to Ian, who was playing my guitar, and he gets on his knees and does the Bowie Ronson, that thing.
No way.
Totally.
So what'd they do?
We so freaked them out that by the 3rd song, they were like, yes.
No way. You turned
We
them.
turned them. I mean, I don't know if they were all, you know, closeted homosexuals. I don't, but we turned them. And the manager now was like, he didn't know, he didn't know what to make of this.
No, it's just, I mean, that's fucking punk rock though. And I think they got that, right?
Totally. So I want to say wherever the show,
So fucking
wherever
cool.
the show was, we finished in Milan. Like that night, we drove an hour to Milan. So the girl still has my pants, and she's like, "Can I ride with you guys back to Milan?" And these were really the rock and roll days where people you didn't know just got on the bus and you would go to the next town. So I remember we got to Milan. We went to the big model disco in Milan. I'm pretty sure I smoked a cigarette. I think I probably tumbled down the stairs into the disco, but of course, not an injury, and then just showed up and danced with models in a mini skirt and smoked cigarettes. And my friend in Hannover, he worked for a record label at this point. He sent me a clipping from some heavy metal magazine, right, of that show. And it had a picture of like, you know, James Hetfield, the guy from Megadeth.
We pull up Megadeth.
No, I know his name. Don't tell me the name.
Okay. I'm terrible with names.
God
so-
damn. It's so terrible that I'm forgetting his name because I just actually was talking about him the other day. Lead guy of... Give me the first letter of his first name.
It could be
Dave Mustaine.
Oh, good
So
job.
the picture of Dave Mustaine and Mike Muir, the only picture of the Cult was me in that miniskirt. And it just said the Cult. So it was like... I like that he clips my bosses. It was pretty fun.
Let's go. I absolutely love that because you just took a crowd that tens of thousands of people that are just enraged.
If one of us had jumped in the crowd, I think they would have torn us limb from
Oh,
limb.
I'm sure. I'm 100% sure.
terrifying.
But they got that, and then all of that happens,
Yeah.
and they got that too, and everything. That's cool.
That
That's real-
was a fun, like, you know, that was a cool, especially because, you know, I was a hired guy. Like,
Yeah.
but it was an interesting thing how that, I think, opening for Metallica, it really did turn into one of those, like, you were in the trenches and you had to kind of,
Yeah, and you
get
did,
shoulder
man.
to shoulder, and yeah, it was fun.
You did, and that experience, you know, going through that experience, and then you wrap up the tour, right? What comes next? Because I mean, that had to be such a bonding experience.
Oh yeah. What comes next is funny. So I had a plane ticket for, you know, whatever the end date was, like an actual paper ticket in my bag. Like, don't lose this.
Yeah.
And the last show was Brixton Academy in London, the Cult just headlining. And I think we had a couple days off. And I went to go use a phone booth for some reason. Well, because there were no cell phones. I used a phone booth to use the phone. And there was a girl using the phone, and I was waiting. And she comes out of the phone, and I used the phone, and she was kind of hanging out. And when I got to the phone booth, we started talking. And she was Canadian, and I think she was like, "Do you want to smoke some pot?" And I didn't smoke weed, but I was like, "Well, there's a attractive girl asking me to smoke pot." I'm like, "Of course."
Let's go.
So we smoked some pot. She goes, "Oh, do you want to come back to my flat?" So we go. She was staying in a like a council flat in Camden town. And what's so funny is that place was a shithole. It was a council flat, which is like, Section 8.
Mm-hmm.
And I was listening to a podcast with Boy George on it, and he now lives about 20 feet from there. And Boy George is not poor.
No.
So
it's gentrified.
it's so gentrified.
It's so gentrified.
So I went back to the council flat, and she was staying, and her roommate was another Canadian who was a model. So it was this was like,
dude, this is out of a
it's
movie.
like the body adventures of Tom Jones. Like wherever I went, I just would bump into girls, but but they were like really cool girls. So they came to the show, and then I still had a couple weeks, and I didn't want to change my plane ticket. So they're like, "Oh, come stay in our flat." So I just stayed in their council flat, which had the payphone indoors. You had to put coins in, like it had a payphone in the house. There was no phone. It was just.
It was literally a payphone in the house.
Yeah. And I think the heater, you probably had to put coins in to make the heater work. This was like very post-World War II London.
Dude, that's so crazy.
And there was just graffiti and piss in the hallways. It was gnarly.
Yeah.
But it was like, whatever, man.
Yeah.
And,
I love it.
So I stayed there for a week or so, and then they were going to the flea market in Camden to sell clothes to get some cash. Meanwhile, there was a girl I'd met in Milan, and I was like, well, I'm gonna fly to Milan, and we're gonna go to Lake Como and have like a romantic vacation. So while they were out, I just left a note. It was like, "Hey, I'm leaving my bag here and taking some clothes. I'll be back in a couple weeks. Hope everything's cool." And and then I left. And when I came back, my bag was still there and everything's cool. And I flew home. So I get home, and I still have my band that plays the White Horse, and that's kind of going along. But it's not.
It's not.
I'm not making a weekly salary. So that kind of carries on. And I want to say, I don't know, fast forward like 6 months or so, the Cult's finishing their record. In the meantime, I did do a show at the Viper Room with Steve Jones and Paul Cook and Tim, who was the singer guitar player in this band High City Miles, as the professionals. So we did the first reunion of Steve Jones and Paul Cook since 1982. So it actually, I'm told, kicked off the Pistols reunion of 95 because Johnny Rotten heard that Steve and Paul were doing the professionals, and he was like, well, fuck, if they're going to make money doing that, let's make more money and do the Sex Pistols.
Yeah.
That I didn't know that until someone told me that like a year ago. So that was that was maybe 94. That was 94. So the Cult is now rehearsing to go on the road, and no one's called me. And I'm kind of like, and when we left, everyone was like, "You're in the band. We love you, mate. It's great." So long story short, they go on the road with another guy, with an English dude, and not me. And I'm bumming because now I'm working at a liquor store in West Hollywood, and it's sort of like, I think I remember a Cult song came on the radio, and I was in the employee bathroom scrubbing the toilet, and I was like, this is kind of depressing.
That's crazy, man.
So yeah, so it went from like,
peak, dude,
to I'm doing fucking deliveries in my inherited Honda Accord.
Yes.
Not being an arena band anymore. So yeah, it was like it was brutal. It fucking destroyed me because I was, I was like, well, I thought I kind of had paid my dues, and now I'm a hired guy in a big band.
Yeah.
So the nice thing was in the end that that band High City Miles morphed into a band called Sucker Punch. We got a record deal, which I thought that would solve everything, but it allowed a year or two of not having to work at the liquor store.
Yeah. And
we made a record, which I think is it's on iTunes.
Yeah.
It's called Sucker Punch. Go find it. I think it sounds great. And I think it's aged very well.
I love
So that kind of carried on, and that just kind of fizzled out. The story behind that one was Green Day's managers, Jeff and Elliott, got a record company out of managing Green Day. So they had the Dance Hall Crashers, and they had us, maybe someone else. I didn't know this at the time, but it was an imprint through MCA. They, everyone wanted new Green Day music after Dookie. And the only thing I think that there was a cover song of a Kinks song, maybe, that was on a soundtrack for some movie.
Okay.
And the movie was not coming out for a few months, and the soundtrack was not coming out for a few months. But Jeff and Elliott, unbeknownst to us, this is before we got signed, they had the Dance Hall Crashers, and they went to K-Rock, who at this point ruled the world. Like if they played a song in K-Rock, it got national.
I remember those days. When I was little.
I want to say the movie was called Angus. I don't know, but they were like, "Hey, we'll give you Green Day's new single early if you'll play whatever our band is their single."
Yeah.
Problem is, they started playing this Green Day single, and the soundtrack wasn't even printed up or ready for release for months.
Oh, shit.
So they fucking torpedoed the soundtrack, because by the time the soundtrack came out, that single had done its thing. Green Day had no idea about this. They were livid. They fired these guys. They still had their label. But by the time our record came out, K-Rock and all these other stations were like, "You're on 510? Like, fuck you guys." Like, you know, we were part of this.
No way.
We had no idea, but we got offered the deal in December of 95. It's fucking Christmas time.
Yeah.
It's the only deal. You're taking that deal.
Yeah, you're taking
Does
that
not
deal.
matter.
You're
We
taking
didn't know that we just signed on to like the most hated people in showbiz.
Yeah.
So yeah, we were dead out of the fucking gates.
So you didn't even have a chance. I mean,
No.
because of all the bad blood.
No, and then there was a new guy took over at MCA, and he actually kept Dance Hall Crashers because they'd sold some records, and he was just like, "I don't even know, these fucking guys are a pain in the ass." Jeff and Elliott, I don't care about this Sucker Punch. You know, just whatever. It's like you buy a new house, you don't want the old furniture.
Yeah, of course.
So we got dropped, and I remember the famous thing was that Elliott, I think it was Elliott Kahn, which is funny. His last name is Kahn.
Yes.
And I have no problem talking shit about him now because he was in the original Sha Na Na, which is pretty funny.
Whoa.
He played Woodstock. I liked them until I realized we were getting dropped, and we were playing our last show opening for Cheap Trick at the House of Blues. And he said, "You know, Mike, this was a pep talk." He said, "I can sense that you're really bummed and upset about this." And I was really upset about, the label going away and stuff too. But, I took my wife and children. We went to our house in the Hamptons, and I realized, it's not just about the music. And I'm like, wait, is this supposed to make me feel better? Like my house in the Hamptons, my wife and kids. And I was just like, dude, I'm
Shut the fuck up.
26 or whatever.
Yeah.
I got, as far as I'm concerned, I got nothing.
Yes.
And you are a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
And you're a little bummed because you've lost your vanity project.
Yeah.
But you're going to go to your house in the Hamptons and realize you have stocks and bonds.
Yes.
And I just was like,
Oh my God.
you're not helping me, Elliot.
Oh my God.
So should you ever hear this,
Yeah.
that was not helpful.
Yeah, no, that's not the way that you should talk to another person. What a freaking con.
Right, yeah, Elliot Kahn. So, so that ended. And
so wait, did Sucker Punch end after that?
we limped along trying to get another deal. We had the record. I think we managed.
Because I had one of your guys' stickers as a kid, so like.
I think we managed. They gave us the masters. Like we owned the record. We could actually, if a label would just take us on, we owned the record. And I mean, we
Come on, labels.
We had a little money stashed away, but I mean, this was that thing of like, it was. I mean, Green Day. We kind of got in on the crest of this thing, but
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have signed us either.
Yeah. I mean, they just kind of gobbled everything up. So.
I mean, what are you gonna do? They're a great band.
Yeah, they are.
And that was a good record we had. But whatever. So we farted along for a few months, I think, and then it ended. I think I went to Europe and kind of hung out for like a month. I came back, got in a band with a couple friends. It was really fun. And the guy got a publishing deal. So I think we did like CMJ and South by Southwest. So it was a lot of fun. We did some like little van tours, and it was a power trio.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. I really was like, oh, this is really fun. That didn't get a deal. And this is probably 98 or so. And I was kind of done. Like I was actually running. I kind of got. I always would run LA Marathon every year, and I would run the. Oh God, it was I think it was called the Pacific. No, I would run the Culver City Marathon, and I would run the Palos Verdes Marathon. So I would do a few marathons a year. So I was getting more into them, and I was kind of fucking tired of music. I was like, this is just fucking heartbreaking. Fuck this shit. So I really got into like training more, and like eating like a really particular diet, and like being really ready to race. And my time started coming down, and I got faster and faster. And by this point, I didn't really. And I was working at a job for a woman who, when rich people wanted to move, we'd pack their shit up. Wow. And I was really good at packing china and crystal, so I didn't have to pack people's dirty, shitty bathrooms. So I would pack their like Waterford crystal, and it was easy. Like, and it was good money under the table, and I just did that, and I would just train, and I had no interest in music, and I don't think I played guitar for a year, maybe two, maybe a couple years. Wow. I had a gold top and a black Les Paul custom that I'd gotten off Steve Jones. They were under my bed, and this is maybe 99 or so, and my phone rings as it does. Where I was just like, oh, I wonder what I'm going to do next. But I know I'm not playing guitar. Yeah. And there was this producer guy who, he might have been like the VP at Hollywood Records at this point. This was when there were still big record labels. And he called me. He's like, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm sweeping the floor. He goes, do you want to play some guitar Monday? And this was Friday. I said, sure. So do you remember the VJ? Because this is when MTV still ruled the world. Do you remember Jesse Camp?
Of course.
All right.
Of course.
Hey, that fucking nudnik.
Yes.
So he got a massive record deal with Hollywood.
What?
Oh, he had a huge deal. Huge.
For singing?
Yeah, he had a. So here's the deal. He had a band. It was like Jesse Camp and the 52nd Street Kids or something like. It was
terrible.
So he had this horrible band, I guess. I didn't know. So they had recorded a whole record, and the guy who produced Green Day, I always forget because his brother's a manager. Shit. Help me out here. Green Day producer and manager brother.
Green Day producer, manager brother.
It's not Guerno. It's
Rob Cavallo.
Cavallo.
Thank you, sir.
So he had gotten roped in to do this record and probably paid a ton of money. And then I think once he realized what it was, he was like, I can't have my name, or I'm not going to deal with this.
Yeah.
So he got my buddy Julian Raymond, who had always been like a big fan of High City Miles and Sucker Punch and Steve Jones. We had connected over the years, and I had done sessions with him and stuff. He said, come play guitar. Like, this guy's band is terrible. We have to recut all the tracks. We've already fucking pissed a ton of money away. So they fired the band. And Cavallo was just like, Julian, you deal with this nonsense, and I'll just be the executive producer and be done with this. So he gets, I don't know who the drummer was, man. It might have been Josh Freese, because Josh Freese was always,
really?
Josh Freese was a Julian guy. I met Josh Freese in 95, maybe.
Okay.
And the only band I think he'd played in then was School of Fish.
Okay.
And he actually talked about power bars because he said he once ate a bunch of them, and it gave him the shits.
Oh, yeah.
Which I think the opposite would be the case. But
yeah,
whatever.
I think maybe
so that's when I met him. So I think he was the drummer, and the bass player was the bass player for Huey Lewis, but not the original guy, but another guy. And he taught me how to do Nashville chord charts, actually.
Okay.
Because I had to learn like 12 songs on the spot. So long story short, though, I hadn't played guitar in 2 years. And he said the sessions start Monday. It's triple scale, which I think back then was $1,500 a day, which that was like $5,000 a day back in 1998. Yeah. I had no idea what the money was. He just said, you're getting paid. We're recording at A&M. I'm like, great. But I hadn't played guitar in 2 years. So I pulled my Les Paul out from under the bed, and I played tens. And I was like, oh, I can't bend these strings. They're too heavy. So I ran down to the music store and got nines, and I put nines on the guitar. And I played along to the first Dolls album and Bollocks the whole weekend. Okay. Just the same shit that I played when I was 13. Because I couldn't play guitar. I was like, oh,
what
I was
the
like,
fuck?
So I was like, God damn. So I'm like, I'm like woodshedding. So I get down to A&M, and, there's like a, full text and shit set up and whatever. And it was kind of perfect because they just wanted me to play like Johnny Thunders and Steve Jones, which is great. And it came, I mean, muscle memory, it came back.
Of
You know,
course.
I could run a marathon if I hadn't run for 2 years if I had to. Probably.
Yes.
So we start recording and we're going, playing all these days. And the Jesse Camp guys all impressed that I knew Steve Jones and the Cult and everything. So Julian knows a million people. He starts calling in favors. He gets Rick Nielsen in. He gets Stevie Nicks in. So now Cavallo starts showing up because there's all these kind of, like, it's sounding good.
Yes.
So Cavallo shows up.
Da, 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 da.
And I'm kind of like, oh, cool. So I show up maybe the fifth day, and there's now like a Soldano amp and a huge pedal board. And I'm like, what's this? Cavallo now has his ringer in who plays on all like the Goo Goo Dolls records and whatever.
Damn.
I don't know who the guy is. I mean, he's a nice guy. But I remember Cavallo is like, hey, man, can you get me that Sex Pistols sound to this guy? And the guy steps on a bunch of pedals and comes up with this kind of pony sound. And I'm thinking,
Excuse me.
yeah, like, you want Sex Pistols sound? I've been doing it for the last week, my friend. And I realized my days were numbered because Cavallo's back and Julian's now getting edged out because Cavallo
Oh my God.
now thinks it's going to be a huge record. He
Ooh.
kind of does a little homework. He's like, this Jesse Camp guy is huge. So I don't get called back. Like, I'm out. And the record comes out. I mean, I got paid. The record came out and it tanked because I think what happened is, I heard this later, Jesse Camp did like a promo tour, but got busted giving underage girls wine and beer. And Hollywood and MTV freaked out and pulled the plug on the whole thing because that's a crime.
Of course.
You don't want to be, party to statutory rape, especially when you're paying
no.
for it. So that whole thing just fucking tanked. And I ran into him a few years later at Irving Plaza in Manhattan. It was pretty funny. So I played guitar again. So I'm now playing guitar again. And I was like, oh, this was kind of nice. Lo and behold, I think Billy Duffy called me again out of the blue. And he's like, actually, no. So now I'm playing guitar again. There's a band on Interscope. They're called Jacked. And a guy named Ted Hutt, it was his band. It was an English band. And Ted Hutt produces Flogging Molly.
Okay.
Or Dropkick Murphys. Goddamn. People get mad.
I'm turning on the air just while you can continue. I'm not using it.
Ted Hutt is an amazing guitar player. I'd known him since the 80s from a bar called The Powerhouse. Ted's an amazing guitar player. He's had a bunch of record deals. He's a story producer now. He got in touch with me, and I don't remember how. And he had a band on Interscope. He's like, I want a second guitar player. We're doing a bunch of shows opening for Bush because they were on Interscope. So now we're going to do like San Diego State University, someplace in Pomona, the Glass House. And then we're going to do the Roxy. Oh, shit. And then we're going to do like a national tour, in an RV or something. This is great.
Still.
I'll get, $1,000 a week cash or whatever. So I'm a touring guitar player again. Here's where the rub comes in.
Uh-oh.
Just before these 3 California dates start, Billy Duffy calls. We're getting the band back together. What are you doing? I'm like, well, shit, I'm kind of busy, but what's your plan? He said, well, we're doing 2 nights at the Viper Room. No, we're doing a night in San Diego as a warm-up, 2 nights at the Viper Room, and then we're flying to Chicago for the Tibetan Freedom Concert. And I look and I go, what are the dates? I'm like, okay. All right, this works out. So I open up for Bush with the band Jacked in San Diego at like 7 p.m. The Cult's headlining Brick by Brick in San Diego the same night.
Wow.
So they're like, well, we'll get you to the gig. I don't think we didn't even do a sound check, but I knew the songs.
Yeah.
So I remember I play opening for
Jacked.
No, I play with Jacked opening for Bush. And I'm walking out to hail a cab, and I've got my Les Paul, and these girls walk by. They're like, "Hey, what are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm going to Brick by Brick." They said, "Oh, we're going to see the Cult there. Do you want a ride?" I said, "If you give me a ride, I'll get you in free." They're like, "Okay." So I go ride with them, and they're like, "Well, how do you think you get in free?" I said, "Well, because I'm going to play in the Cult." So I go play the Cult show. spend the night.
You get them in.
Yeah.
They're stoked. Yeah,
And then play, and I got a ride.
Yes.
So I play the cult show. We do that. Then I think I drive back with them the next day with their manager or something. I think I was like, look, I have a 64 Ranchero. It's not reliable. Can you rent me a car for this? Because I'm going to play this Pomona show opening for Bush. So I drove out to Pomona, played with Bush, played with Jacked.
Yeah.
Did the Bush show, then had to drive to the Viper Room for a show that night.
Oh my God.
Which I think is fine because they're going on like at midnight or something.
Yeah.
I get on the 10 and all of a sudden it's all lane, one lane open construction. It's one of those where you're on the 10 and you're bumper to bumper. And I'm just like, holy shit, now what? And there were no cell phones then. So I didn't have a cell phone. I'm just like, well, I hope I make it. And at some point it opens back up and I just fucking floor it, get to Hollywood. And I showed up like 10 minutes before it was going.
Shut up.
So we played that show, and they probably put me up in a hotel. So then the next night, we're doing the second night at the Viper Room. Jacked was opening for Bush at the Roxy. So that was easy. I just went down and played the
very
Roxy.
close.
So then I'm walking back down, and I bump into a lady friend of mine. She's like, what are you doing? And I said, oh, I'm going to the Viper Room. What are you doing? She said, oh, I'm going to see the Cult. I said, well, I'm going to go play in the Cult. She's like, no way. And I go, do you want to come in? She goes, sure. I go, stay right behind me. I'll get you in free. But I remember we went to the door and she dilly-dallied and didn't get in.
Dummy.
So we play the show and then fly to Chicago, do the Tibetan thing. And then I went on the road with Jacked, I want to say for a few weeks, and it just fucking worked out that we finished in Philadelphia or somewhere, or DC, and the Cult was starting in Philadelphia. So I just took Amtrak. I took my Marshall head and a guitar, and I just was like bouncing between tours. And then
my God.
that's when the Cult reformed. We did the whole 99 tour. They got one of probably the last massive record deals with Atlantic. I remember being on the bus, and guys from record labels would talk to me like I had some influence. They'd be like, Mike, this is why you should sign to Geffen. And I'm just thinking, do you not realize you're talking to the kitchen help?
Yes.
Like, I can't influence anything. But they would like buy me drinks and dinner and these
Shit,
things. I
fuck
was
it.
like, oh yeah, man, yeah, that sounds like a great deal,
Yes.
And I'm just like, whatever. So that happened. So then they get a huge record deal. They make a record. We go on the road for a year or two, and then they break up. So we're now at about 2001 or 2.
2001 or 2. Hold on, just real quick, and then we're gonna get back to 2002. Right? What happened? Why didn't they bring you on that tour after you did the first tour with them?
I never really got an answer. I mean, it didn't really matter. Once I was back in the band,
Obviously,
Ian
yeah.
blamed Billy. But
Okay.
that's kind of always
Maybe you stole the show.
how it goes. I think it was the guy was English. He was a friend of Billy's, and I don't know. He might, Billy might have been living in London. I don't remember, but I think it was one of those things. It was just, it was probably a lot easier
Yeah.
at the time,
Yeah.
But
it hurt.
It totally did. But I don't think it would have ended because then they broke up a month into that tour.
Yeah. So it's just like
So
fuck it.
everything worked out.
Everything worked out.
But
That's so
but
crazy.
I was bumming out for a year.
Oh, 100%.
Like
100%.
I'd go on dates and tell girls, I was in the Cult in
Yeah.
Europe, but no one knew because it was Europe. So it
No
was
one gives
like
a
no
shit.
one ever seen me. Like,
No. It's not like today you post a picture on social media. It's like so.
there was none.
so
Yeah.
different.
It was totally like, but I was kind of a rock star for 3 months
Yeah.
on another continent.
Yeah.
Now I'm working at the liquor store.
That's so crazy to think that you are touring, performing in front of tens of thousands of people, and then you're coming back scrubbing to it. Like, that's just mind-boggling to me.
I mean, it keeps you humble.
Yes.
And it's the guy that was on the Dire Straits Brothers in Arms tour.
Yeah.
I listened. He has a podcast, and he did 250 shows with those guys, and was going to be on the next record and the whole thing, and then basically never saw them again. Like, just Mark Knopfler just moved on.
Wow.
So his mind fuck was epic.
Whoa, that's
Because he's in the videos.
Yeah.
He's the guy in the videos and stuff.
Yeah, he's not the hired help.
Yeah. I mean, he was the hired help, but he
Yeah,
was,
but
yeah.
he's yes, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So,
Damn,
so I
that's-
listened to his podcast, and I think he's still reeling from that one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's tough, man. Okay, so get back 2002, right? They break up. What is next, man?
By this point, I'd gotten into ultras at this point.
Okay.
And
Fuck, an ultra marathon.
And
Can you explain what that is?
Anything over a marathon. So
So
50K is usually the next step.
And so that, how many miles is that?
31. So I think I did a 50. I'd always done a couple marathons a year, you know, and kind of worked at getting faster. Like I really started, I wasn't sure the band had broken up, but I just knew that it was one of those maybe hiatus times. And I kind of didn't care. It had gotten pretty toxic between those two guys. And I was kind of like, whatever. So I really got, and I had some money in the bank and just was like, you know, I had a girlfriend and a dog and was like, you know, maybe I'll go work at I would have worked if Nike or Asics or someone had said like, oh, hey, like, do you want to be like a liaison with, you know, celebrities or something? I would have taken the job in a heartbeat.
No way.
Like I really would have, you know, I was really into it. So I was training and I knew I was going to bring this up. I got my PR down. It's not super fast, but it was like Boston qualifying. Actually, I PR'd at the Santa Clarita Marathon here. I went down from...
Santa Clarita has a marathon?
They used to.
Pull that up, Scotty.
It was fast, man. I ran it in 2001 or 2. It was in like November.
Oh my god!
Oh my god, they're doing another one this year on November 12th.
Yeah,
Can I see a picture of it? I'm so sorry.
It was a fast course, man, until the end.
No way. Hold on. I want to know what your time was.
I think 3:12.
Shut up.
But I was bummed because 3:10. I have that shirt, the third from the left.
No way. They're doing one this year?
Yeah, this year. They did one last year too, I think.
It was a great course, but in the last 10K, you go over all those the bridges over the main.
The Paseos, yeah.
And you don't want those.
No,
like
no,
in the
no.
last 10K, man.
No.
And I was like looking at going sub 310. And I didn't know that 310 meant you could run 310.59. You know what I mean? So I think I ran 312. Like I might have maybe been able to find that minute somewhere. But so I was like, wow, I'm almost Boston qualifying. So I got, and that was on, you know, I lopped like 12 minutes off my PR.
Wow.
I just would do this once a week, really gnarly 12-mile up, 6 miles up, 6 miles down trail run with really fast guys who were all sub 3. And I would just hang on for dear life. And I did that for 1 month and then knocked 12 minutes off my PR.
Damn.
Just by training with fast guys. So I was like, oh, I got to go sub 310. So I got really into training. I ended up running a 308 at the Pacific Shoreline on a really shitty course with a terrible headwind. I was 305 shape for sure. Because I know I ran a 127.5 in training. So
you could have done it.
I could have done 305. I couldn't have done sub 3, I don't think.
Yeah, because you have to get below 3, right?
No, it's sub 310 at the time.
What is it now? Do you know?
I think it's sub 3 or something.
Yeah, because we were just looking at it. What does it qualify for Boston Marathon? That's insane.
So I just got really into running and didn't really care about music.
What is it?
Yeah, it's based on age group. So 18 to 34 is 3 hours for men, 3 hours, 30 minutes for women. And it kind of like progresses by 5 minutes as you get
What's
older.
55-year-old? I bet it's 320 or sub 330.
Let me see. I got to check more rows.
I could maybe pull
So
up.
55, it's going to be 3 hours and 35 minutes for a man.
Ooh, well,
Could you do that? If you trained for a year, got on some peptides.
I don't think I trained for a year. I think 3 months. I just got to see if I want to run that fast.
Dude, that's amazing though. Like, I 55-year-olds in 2023 are so different than 55-year-olds of the past, man.
There's always fast old
No,
guys,
I
though.
know, but it's just I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, man. It's just
That seems. I mean, honestly, dude. I mean, sub 4 seems impossible to me. Right? It just seems too fast.
It's just. I mean.
But I don't care anymore.
Yeah, I know.
I just want to be able to run and not be injured. And,
That's exactly it. Right.
But,
I get that. Damn, man. Well, kudos to you. I mean, still, man, that's incredible.
so Santa Clarita. So
Yeah,
it was
Santa
funny
Clarita.
because as I was riding here, I was like, oh, those fucking Paseos. I was like, if that thing had a downhill finish just a little bit, I would have been 310. But I was just like, why would you put those ramps? Like they just kill
so
you.
crazy.
It was not good.
For the people listening, I offered to send them a car. I would have brought you. You rode your bike all the way here, man, which was so cool. 4.5. I love that.
So,
But yeah, let's get back.
so yeah, I'm done with music again. Now
Yes,
here I'm just like
done.
I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely done. So I was thinking like, okay, I got to do something, you know. And I had a buddy at Power Bar actually, who was the first guy who gave me gels. And I remember he gave me gels in '99, and I was like, what do you do with these? Like they had the first gels, I'm sure.
Wow. Yeah,
And I remember just kind of, I think I threw them away because I was like, these are stupid.
Yes.
Like it didn't occur to me that you had to eat anything during the right, whatever. So I think I called them and said like, hey, is there any way I could get into the, the endurance sport business?
Yeah.
Because I figured there must be like a cult fan somewhere or something that would get me into something. I have a college degree. I'm articulate. I thought there's something to do. So he goes,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
He was like, oh,
100%.
call this woman so-and-so. So I call her, and she calls me back. And long story short, the only job I could find, and I don't even think they offered it to me, was to be like someone who goes to a race expo and hands out free shit.
Oh, come on.
I'm not kidding you.
Oh, come on.
She said, and most people have experience doing it. I'm thinking, and I hung up the phone and I looked at my girlfriend at the time. I'm like, I can't even go give out like chopped up power bars. So then a couple weeks later, the phone rings. I'm sweeping the floor again in the kitchen, and it's a Julian Raymond friend, and he's a producer. And he's like, hey, I heard you're the guy, man. He goes, I got this girl. She's 20 or she's 18. She's like Avril Lavigne, but she's not a sellout. Like he's giving me this whole spiel. Like, why is Avril Lavigne a sellout? She's super popular.
Yes.
So he's telling me how great she is, and I need someone who can play like that Steve Jones, Johnny Thunders, Mick Ronson thing. And I'm told you're the guy. This is your, and I'm like, I am. Yeah. He said, so he's going on. He's like, I know you. So, do you know someone who plays like that who's young?
I mean, dude, how old were you at the time?
32.
What the fuck is wrong?
But I mean, it was I was so gobsmacked. And here to my great eternal humiliation, I said to him, "No, but if I hear of someone, I'll let you know. And if you hear of any gigs, maybe I could do. Let me know." Like,
you should, fuck that.
I should have been like,
of course.
Excuse me, what's your address so I can come to your house and just fucking throttle you,
dude.
No, it was the most. And I hung up that phone and I looked at my girlfriend and was like, I thought I heard everything. It was. I wish I remember that guy's name. I would find him online now. And just
dick.
That still like rankles. That was.
That
was a kidney
dude.
punch.
You're 2 years old. First off, like that's just a.
Maybe I was 34.
Whatever,
but
dude.
The buildup was like. So I heard you're the best thing since sliced bread. You know anyone like you?
Oh my
It was
God.
It was.
Well, whatever. His loss. Do you even know who the band was or the girl was?
No.
Well, thank God.
Definitely, she didn't. Nothing came of it. But
yeah.
it was. That was a real just like, dude. I just got told I couldn't give out chopped up Cliff bars at the expo, and now I just got this.
And now you're too old.
Yeah, that was. It was like so.
But you thought it was crazy at that, right? Like you didn't. I mean, it probably hurt, but like
I didn't think I was too old, but I just thought, well, I mean, I may not, get a gig again. That was. No, I mean, I knew the guy was
an idiot.
Yeah, that was like he's got to be on the spectrum
100
to say something that insane.
For sure. I mean, to go through all of that, say you're the best, you're amazing. Someone like, come on, dude. Like you're not 105.
No, it was like a Jerky Boys thing.
Yeah.
Going on like a speed dating thing.
Yeah.
Like, man, you're great. Do you know someone who's better looking than you that's got the same personality? Like, so that happened. So it maybe a year or so later, I'm single now. And my best friend, Tim, who was in Sucker Punch, he's single now. And then my buddy Wade, who I had been in bands with and had known since the 80s, he's now single. And I'm just rolling around my 3-bedroom house in Woodland Hills, kind of lonely.
Yeah.
And they all ended up moving in.
All right.
We all had dogs. And we went to the local corner bar. It was some new kind of bistro bar. And the bar manager was this gorgeous woman. Like, we all were like, oh my God. And she looks at us and she's like, it's a brand new place. And it's trying to be like a cool nightclub in Woodland Hills.
Okay, yeah.
And we know this is going to fail miserably. But
100%.
But she's like, are you guys in a band? You look like a band. Because I want some live music here. And we'd all been in bands together, but never the three of us. So we said, yeah, we have a band. What do you want? She said, I just want like some cover songs and stuff. Like, can you play on a Thursday or whatever? We're like, yeah, totally. So we just bullshit and we go back. and it's like 120 degrees because it's Woodland Hills. And I remember we're all in our like boxer shorts rehearsing. I didn't even have like a small amp. So I went down to Black Market Music and bought like some little Fender amp for a couple $100. And that was a great store, by the way, that Todd Youth used to run. God bless. And so we rehearsed up some songs and played the next week.
Damn.
And we started like a little residency there.
All right.
And one night and then we started playing at the pub across the street, which was really, that'd been there forever. I'd seen Mick Taylor there. Like it was kind of a cool, storied, classic English pub. And one night during one of these shows, I started talking to a woman, and I think she ended up like dating the drummer, Wade. But I said, what do you do? She said, oh, I manage a shoe store in the mall. And she said, we're hiring. And I said, oh, really? I said, well, maybe I'll go apply. And I went and applied.
That's so crazy.
And it was kind of fun because like I had money coming in because I had roommates. I had money in the bank. But I thought, I'm not doing anything. I'll go work in a shoe store because maybe someone will walk in and need a guitar player. I just thought I need to get out of the fucking house.
Yeah, I love that.
So
about you.
I was selling shoes in the mall. And I remember Frankie from Blondie came in and he remembered me. He's like, I know you. You're like you're the Steve Jones band guy. And I'm just like, yeah, what size are you?
Were you embarrassed?
No, actually, because he was just cool.
I love that.
John Five came in, and he knew who I was because we'd done a bunch of shows with Marilyn Manson, and he was a dick. Yeah, he was uncool.
Fuck him.
Yeah, he was uncool. Frankie's cool.
Yeah.
I got recognized a couple times, and it was kind of embarrassing, but at the same time, I didn't care because I wasn't broke.
Yes.
So being 35 or 6 and selling shoes when you don't need to, it was kind of like sort of some weird sort of,
Yeah. Yeah. You just want to go to the house.
Like
man.
an Andy Kaufman kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's got legendary.
And 1 month, like Sheila, who I'm still friends with, she lives in New York now. She was the manager, and we used to just, we would have a fucking laugh, man. And the only new music I was exposed to is we would get these like CD-ROMs, or they would send us like videos with videos of music. So that's where I kind of got hip to the Killers, and there was a really cool band called Pink Grease. And then we would listen to Sirius XFM or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I would listen to Little Steven's Underground Garage and Maki Ramone's Punk Rock Blitzkrieg, which was always just a drag. But so I would kind of hear new music there and kind of got a little bit, inspired again.
Yeah.
And particularly like the Little Steven stuff was great. He's great.
That's awesome.
And at one point though, Sheila, my manager's like, look, corporate's kind of on my ass because like we're not, our sales are pretty low. And she's like, and yours are particularly low. And she's like, I don't want to be the worst store on the West Coast. Like, that's not good. She's like, can you maybe try at least a little?
Yeah.
And I said, you know what? I'm going to try a lot. I'm like, check this shit out. I'm going to sell some fucking shoes. So I Andy Kaufman style, I went nuts. And it was a Steve Madden store. So it was mostly women's shoes. We had a little tiny men's section. But women would come in. And it was great because women would come in. And you knew they were buying shit for like a bachelorette party in Vegas because they'd always come back on Monday with a broken heel.
Yes.
And they'd be like, I don't know what happened. It just broke. And we're like, don't worry, warranty. Don't sue us.
Yes.
Obviously, they got drunk and fell down the stairs and broke.
100%.
But I was pretty good with the shoe thing because women are obsessed with their feet looking too big.
Yeah.
And they would try to cram a size 9 into size 7. I said, look, you're going to fuck your feet up. Don't do this. I said, wear your size 9 shoe because a larger shoe is slimming on the calf.
Ooh.
I started moving shoes like nobody's. Put it this way: at the end of the month, corporate was like, Sheila, who's this 594? What was my number? 5959. That was my employee number. Like, this 5959 guy. He's the best salesperson we have. What's his deal? Like, so I got a free pair of shoes. That was the big prize.
No way.
And they actually would kick you down commission too. Actually.
Yeah.
So I proved myself, and Sheila's like, "Oh my God, 5'9", you're the fucking top salesman on the West Coast." And then I went straight back to nothing after that.
Just to prove the point.
Right back. So yeah, I was my storied. So I did shit. I might have done that for a year or so.
Wow.
And then I heard rumors the cult was reforming, and now in 2006. And I kind of got annoyed that like if these fuckers reform again and don't call me, I'm gonna be pissed.
Yeah.
So I called Ian and left a kind of surly message on his answering machine, like what the fuck. And I was on a bike ride. I was going up Payum, and Billy Duffy called me, and he said,
This time you had a cell phone.
Yes.
Yes.
It was probably still a Nokia.
Yeah. Oh,
if
yeah.
you talk too long, it would catch fire.
100%.
It was probably
100%.
Nokia.
Yeah. Because the iPhone came out like a year later.
It was a Nokia, but I had a BlackBerry for a long time.
Yep.
I rolled with that with the wheel and
Yep,
then the ball that would get some dirt in it and it would
yep.
freeze up.
Did you ever have a sidekick?
No.
Oh man, I love
Did that slide out?
It flipped out, but yeah.
I remember seeing those.
Yeah,
No,
that was cool.
I tried to refuse the iPhone because I was like, I don't like this typing screen.
Yeah, especially when it came out first. It was so clunky. I didn't get one until like the 4 or 5 anyways, but whatever.
That's probably about what I did.
Yeah.
So they reformed. I was in the band again. And yeah, that carried on until I basically got headhunted by Bad Religion.
No, okay. And how long ago was that?
That was the funny thing. That was another bike ride. I was riding to Malibu to meet my wife, my now ex-wife, my wife and son, in the spring of 2012, and I'd actually just run my last LA marathon.
Wow.
On like nothing. That was a whim. Like I had a free entry. My friend's like, dude, my wife's gonna drive us to the start because that was Dodger Stadium to the pier.
Yeah.
And I was like, shit, this is maybe my only chance. It's free. I ran 20 miles the Sunday before. I rode probably 70 miles the day before.
Jesus.
And just went and ran it. And I remember figuring if I can break 4 hours, I'm going to be lucky. And when I got to mile 20, I was like, shit, dude, you're running like 3:30 something. So I just kind of ballsed out for the last 10K and ran 3:36.
Dude, Tyler, do you hear this shit?
I think I could have done 3:30 if I'd realized I could have run, but I started really slow in the beginning. But the problem was I didn't bring my phone, and I was like, well, I'll just get a cab. There are no cabs.
You didn't even listen. There's no, no music.
We're at the pier.
Yeah, well,
and I was like, I told my wife, I'm like, just meet me in Malibu. I'll figure it out. So I walked another 10K up the up PCH, up the bike path till I found a payphone. And then I called my wife Collect, which cost like $18, and said like, I'll meet you at Gladstone's. And I had to walk. So I think I ended up doing 50K that day because I walked like another 6 or 7 miles with the foil blanket.
Dude.
And people were honking. They probably thought I was some Italian tourist.
Yes.
They were like, yay for you. And I'm
Yes.
just walking up PCH with a blanket. So a month later, I'm riding my bike to Cross Creek, and I get a cell phone message from Brian Baker.
Yeah.
And I've known Brian since maybe 88, 87. We do not talk on the phone. Like, we'd bump into each other on the road somewhere. And he called me and said, hey, I'm flying to Europe. I'm at a layover. Could you call me? I need to talk to you about something. I'm like, this is weird. Then I go on Twitter, and Jay Bentley is now following me. And I'm like,
oh, shit.
That's fucking weird. You know, I knew Jay from like going to art parties or something.
Yeah.
So I finally get in touch with, and I said to Hillary, I was like, this is just weird. Something is afoot. So Brian calls me back maybe the next day or something. He said, look, here's the deal. Hetson's out. We're doing a festival in Belgium this weekend. Can you learn, 50 minutes worth of songs in 10 days and do festivals? And I was like, sure, okay. I had no idea what I was getting into. And by this time, I didn't even have like iTunes or anything.
Yeah.
I rode my bike to like a Barnes & Noble to go buy CDs.
This is 2012.
Yeah.
This is great.
2013.
Yeah.
And I cobbled together a few CDs, and I think then I went to a used record store and bought some more. So I had enough CDs that I could like learn the 15 songs or something that I had to learn. And then I did one run through with Brooks and Jay. That was it. And then fucking showed up in Tucson or somewhere, or Vegas, to do a show.
No way.
Yeah, it was totally bizarre. And I looked down at the set list halfway through the set, and the song No Direction was on there. And I was like, Jay, I don't know that song. He said, you don't remember it? I said, no, I never heard it. And he's like, oh, okay. And so they crossed that one off.
No way.
Yeah, that was it was fucking terrifying, man. It was terrible. Because I went from being in a band where I was,
comfortable.
A+ every night.
Yes.
To just fucking sucking. And it was super fast. And, and if you missed a chord change, you weren't getting back on.
Yeah, definitely.
You just fucking were going to hack it away for the rest of the song. Good luck next time.
Dude.
So yeah, the learning curve was terrifying.
How long did it take?
I mean, Brian was really cool. He was like, "You'll be fine. You're in the same boat as I was. You're already doing better. You'll figure it out.
Of course.
You'll get the right hand will come once you get that going." Because that was the real key. Everything I did was mid tempo, chunk chunk chunk.
Yeah.
And I didn't have that like
Fucking.
kind of country western doing.
Yeah.
I mean, shit. We just did a few shows in the States. And then maybe I don't remember now. We must have rehearsed. We must have done like some proper rehearsals. And then we went to Europe for like 6 weeks, came back for maybe 2 weeks, then went back for like another set. We did like a shit ton. And I hadn't officially said like, I want to, take your offer. Because the cult wasn't doing anything. But I also was like, I got to make sure I can do this.
Yeah.
And after that first 6-week tour, I think I was like, okay, maybe after the second one, but by then I had it wired and I could do it.
Definitely.
And then it came time to tell the cult.
Yeah.
And it was kind of funny because we would do these shows and I would see people with like backstage with like who I recognized having played there with the cult, and they had like the most recent cult concert shirt. And I was wondering if social media would out me that I was playing with Bad Religion, which I didn't care if it did because the cult had no shows booked. And I was kind of hoping it would. I thought it'd be interesting.
Yes.
And it's advanced, in the 10 years plus.
Oh, big time.
Because it would have taken one show and it would have been like all over.
It would have been done. Done.
Yeah, which I kind of wanted. I wanted a bit of a like, hey guys, like.
Yeah. It's kind of icebreaker.
Or also just like, do you want to make a counter offer?
Yeah.
I mean, it is a business.
It is a business.
And it was so funny. So I penned 2 separate emails, one to Billy, one to Ian. Like, hey, it's been a great run, but I got to do this because I'm splitting the guitar duties with Brian. There's a ton on my plate. It's a real job. Like I have to work hard. I can't just show up and have 3 pints and 3 shots and do the gig. It's like I've got to like really be on my game.
Yes.
And I love that because I was on autopilot for years.
Yes.
And it was hard. Like those 2 European tours with those guys, every night was just like fucking, because they change the set every night. And some nights it was like, oh, thank God, it's a bunch of songs that I can handle pretty well with maybe a couple dicey ones. Then sometimes they'd put a set where there'd be like 4 songs in a row that were every one of them was a motherfucker. Then the next 4 songs were a motherfucker, and I would just be stressing. Because then when you play a bunch of songs you don't play well, then it kind of fucks you up on the songs you know well.
Yeah.
So every night was like random. I could have a great show, or I could come off stage feeling like I don't deserve to be here. So
wow, that's
fucking,
humbling though.
Yeah, it I had to relearn my craft. I was like, fucking A, I thought I knew what I was doing. And
absolutely.
Now I'm, 44 or 5, and I'm, some nights are great where I'm like, holy shit, I'm playing better guitar than I played since I started playing guitar. Then some nights I'm like, Jesus Christ, I just embarrassed myself. And everyone was really cool about it. And it was never as bad as you think.
No, I mean, the people probably didn't even realize it. No,
I mean, the guys in the
did.
band, Brian and Jay were like, don't worry about it. So,
and that's what matters.
Yeah.
That's
But it
what
sucked.
matters.
I
Of
wanted to be
course.
like, you guys are paying me. I want to,
Perform.
yeah, I want you guys to be like, we're getting our money's worth.
Yeah.
You're doing well. And the ego too. You want people to be like, that was great. Not sort of just like, you'll get there.
Of course.
Like,
It's the ego, right? That's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
yeah, totally. I want to walk off stage and know that I've acquitted myself.
Yeah,
well.
I feel like a fucking rock star, man. Come on.
So I pen 2 separate emails to Billy and Ian, and I'm kind of proofreading them and making sure they're, I wanted to let them know some things that that had been in my craw over the years, but there was nothing vindictive or shitty. It was like, you guys are my friends, and we've had ups and downs, but I got to do this, but I want to let you guys know, and I want to thank you because I wouldn't be doing this now if I hadn't done this with you guys.
Yes.
And just before I'm proofreading, an email comes through, because long story short, I'm leaving that band for less money.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to take less money with Bad Religion, but I was like, I'm going to be happy.
Yes.
Because I'd been unhappy for a long time, and I'm going to work hard and work a lot. So I knew in the aggregate I would make more money, but also it was a job I dug. And I
Yes.
went with my heart. I was like,
Fuck yeah.
money hasn't. It was not the issue. I opened the emails from the band's manager, and he says, "I don't know when we're going on the road next, but when we are, effectively, in effect, I was taking a non-negotiable 25% a week cut. Take it or leave it." And I'd already, so now with that pay cut, I'm now making more money with Bad Religion.
Oh my gosh.
And I read it to my wife, and she's like, "Press fucking send." And it was just like, but it was hysterical that I'd already decided to take less money.
Yes.
And the going with your heart thing, already I was now making more money.
Yeah, it was.
And the phone rings the next day, and it's the manager, and he's like, so here we are.
Yeah.
And he's not their manager anymore. He's a funny guy. He played hardball, and he was kind of an asshole to deal with when you dealt with your contract. He was a complete asshole.
Yeah.
But that's his job.
Of course.
I love the guy. He's funny. But for some reason, he talked like Christopher Walken. So he called me. He's like, so why are you leaving the band? I don't do a good Christopher Walken.
No, but I get what you're saying.
But he was like, is it because it's just not fun anymore? And I was like, yeah, you're kind of onto something. And he said that, that they blamed him. Like, this is your fault. But it was funny. And and I told him, I said, for the record, dude, I went for less money. Like, this was not about money, by the way. But then when you threw that,
it was just,
knuckleball, I was like, come on, dude, really?
Yeah.
Like, so
yeah.
we parted on good terms. And
wow.
So
did they ever find out? Did you ever tell them the whole story, or is this kind of?
No, they don't even.
It doesn't even matter.
I stay in touch with them. I mean, I just did a whole flurry of texts with Billy and Ian because they were playing Barcelona when I was in Girona last month, and they were a 30-minute train ride away. And I thought about God, it would be kind of fun to go down there and see them.
Yeah.
All suntanned in my white linen suit.
Yeah.
But it was like, man, it's Barcelona, man. They're going to go on at midnight.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm going to make every show we'd done, Bad Religion, had been 1 a.m. festivals. And I was like, it's brutal.
Yeah. Yeah. What's that? First off, man, it's kind of funny when you decide to go with your heart, what happens, right? And to have that experience and then everything kind of open up the way that it did, it just made the decision obviously that much easier. When you got that offer though from Bad Religion, what was it? Why did they reach out to you? I mean, out of all the guitar players and,
believe me,
no disrespect. I'm not saying.
I was scratching my head because I mean, I knew of the band. I was familiar with them and had even opened for them in High City Miles in Las Vegas, actually. But, I really knew Stranger Than Fiction because that's what was on the radio.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think Brian said the same thing. I dug punk rock and that's what got me into music. But by the time I was playing shows, I always had that, I always looked back to the Sex Pistols and the Clash and stuff. But I was like, well, I'm in a rock and roll band.
Yeah.
And punk rock was just that iteration of rock and roll.
Yes.
In the same way that Little Richard was his thing.
Yes.
And that was rock and roll. So I saw the Pistols as that. I didn't see punk rock's the thing that's going to go on forever. I was like, it's rock and roll. That was the exciting rock and roll thing then.
Yeah.
And then when Green Day happened, I'm like, yeah, they're harkening back to that same thing, but it's rock and roll. And I still have that same argument. I'm not going to go down some punk rock ethos thing or something.
No,
it's rock and roll.
Yeah,
it's
there's
good rock and roll.
different genres of rock, but it's rock and roll.
So when Brian called, I was kind of like, okay. And then when I kind of dug into the music, I was like, fuck, this is some of this stuff's in my wheelhouse, and some of this is not at all. I never played fast punk rock, ever. I mean, I never was in a band that had a fast song. It was Sex Pistols stuff. It was Clash. I never had played fast in my life, and this was like, oh boy. And Brian just said, you were the guy. You were the only guy on the list because I know you can tour. I know you. I know how you can play, and I know you'll get it. Because Brian was like, it was hard for me, but Brian had been in Minor Threat, so Brian had played fast before.
Yes.
This was, oh boy. And And that was very flattering. I think I didn't want to disappoint him.
Yeah.
And the other guys just took him on his word. Like Jay knew me, and I think they were like, well, he was in the cult, and maybe they wanted to do something out of that gene pool. Maybe.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, that's cool. And you have a great personality as well. So I mean that.
I think he knew that we all could laugh and
yeah. I mean, come on, man. If you're spending so much time with a person, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, their skills do matter, right? But then there's plenty of people that have skills. Like, now, can I spend a lot of time with this person, right?
Yeah.
And that is very, very important when, especially being in a band, you're so fucking tight, dude.
And touring's, not to sound, it's a first world problem, but it's grueling and
No,
tiring and
come
boring.
on, man.
And they knew that that's what I do.
Yes.
It wasn't like that was my job.
Yeah.
So they knew I could do that. And the cult guys, their reputation precedes them. And I think he knew like I could definitely hack their situation.
Yeah. Man, and they're still doing it after all these years, which is phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean,
It's incredible, man. Like it really is. Does it ever, like, how do you deal with the ups and downs of touring? Because like, how many days are you on tour a given year?
I mean, it really depends. I don't. I mean, I go back and I was listening to the Dire Straits guy podcast, and I think he told me they ended up, because that record was so big, they just kept adding shows. They did like 280 shows in a year. Bands. I mean, I would love to do that because that would be a great earning year.
Yes.
I don't think anyone could handle that.
It's just a lot.
Yeah, that's
mentally too.
It's brutal. I mean, if you're flying in your own plane or something,
sure,
you definitely you could make it work more easily. But I mean, yeah, touring in a bus and doing that. I mean, it would be brutal.
Yeah,
yeah.
Not everyone's touring like the Foo Fighters, and shit like
exactly.
that. So
I mean, you get older, it's hard to. I mean,
that's it.
I mean, the Stones, they do like one show a week.
Yeah,
they just hub. They'll be in Paris for a week, and then But
that's still cool though.
Yeah,
man.
they make so much money that it's okay because they can't.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
They can't do 4 shows a week. It just it would destroy them.
No. But even still, after all these years, to still do one show a week, that's like to get up there and see the way that he moved. Like, I mean, it's still it's so incredible. For you, like all these tours, like what do you like better? Like as far as like, do you like festivals or do you like? Let me add better question. To look back at all the places that you've ever performed, what one means the most or what one stands out the most? Is there one?
Like an actual show or
or a place that you performed at?
Oh, let me think. I would say without a doubt there was a cult show in Hamburg that was one of the best shows I remember playing because we ran out of songs and had to like play Sanctuary for the encore at the Hamburg Docks. That's always a good show. But the best show I've ever been part of was Bad Religion at the Palladium 2019. And it was the last show of the tour, so we were, just on fire.
Yeah.
We probably played for 6 weeks straight. And it was just one of those things where like you came out and, from the first song, it was just, everything was firing on all cylinders.
So tight.
And the crowd was great. So when the crowd is losing their shit, that makes you play better. And then you play better, then they freak out even more. And it was one of those just like, oh my God. Like I remember getting done just like, that was, I hope everyone else agrees with me because that was just ridiculous. Wow. And Brett Gurewitz came back and was like, that was ridiculous. And I remember that was really a fun, that was a great way to end a tour.
Yes.
Just sort of like, you knew you'd done a really good show and the crowd knew you'd done a really good show and they also were the reason.
Yeah.
They were.
You feed off of each other, right?
It was very like symbiotic.
Yes,
that sounds kind of cheesy.
No,
but
it's true. It's true. Like I mean, it doesn't matter if it's 100 people or 100,000 people, right? Like it's like you definitely feed off of each other, and I think that that is just so beautiful. And to be able to live the life that you've been able to live, right? It's a very unique experience.
It is unique.
It's a very. Do you ever like sit back and, maybe get really high or whatever, like, and look at your own life. And of course you've had your ups and downs like everyone, and we've had people, we've lost people, but like how fortunate your own experience is.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have to remind myself, that if you told like the 13-year-old me that I'd be doing this, it would be, I wouldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And we've I think the last show we did of this Euro thing just the other month was Download at Donington.
Okay.
I mean, that was, I did it with the cult, and I think I did it when it's still called Donington Festival, but it's up in the Midlands in England, and it's by the Midlands Airport, and we're playing, and you're a little bit on autopilot because you've done 4 festivals and you know all the songs. And I just remember seeing this DHL plane come over. I'm saying, God, that plane's really low. And I remember thinking, like, I was actually thinking about the aircraft while we're playing this show. And I thought, like, that's really weird, because when you're 13, you think you'd be like, shitting bricks because you're playing in front of 80,000 people or whatever.
Yes.
And it's not that you're up there jaded. It's just like you can also notice other things.
Of course.
Like I'll look and I'll see, like, oh my God, did you see, the guy get the fish and chips thing dumped on his head, or the, the person lost their pants. Like I love looking in the crowd and seeing what's going on, because it's just, 80,000 different ridiculous things going on.
Yes.
But I remember seeing that plane and thinking, like, geez, that's a DHL plane. It's kind of low. and then you're thinking, like, when you're 13, you would be thinking the last thing you would be thinking about would be a DHL plane or whatever.
For sure. But
and
like,
you're playing a festival, you're like,
absolutely. But both things aren't like mutually exclusive. It's just like, recognizing that and understanding that it's, especially after doing so many shows. But I always wondered, like, being able to perform in front of all those people, like how lost can you get into the inner workings of the crowd? And like by you just saying that, right? Like the fishing, like I could totally see that. You're 55, right? Mm-hmm. Where do you see this all going? What's next?
I mean, my sincere hope is that Bad Religion keeps going, and I mean, the way I look at it is, you look at the Stones, and bands. I mean, as long as you can do it and people want to hear it, I don't know why someone would not want to do it.
Absolutely, right?
I mean, there's no. I find, there's, like, as I said, the Generation Sex thing is going on right now. Like I was texting with Steve Jones, and I see on Instagram, like, they're playing a bunch of festivals, and they're still in Europe and touring. And I'll go on social media and see people, bitch and moan about something, and it's just like, it's really easy to, it's social media, but it's so easy to be some jaded, keyboard guy, or online person who's like, they should fucking pack it in there now. It's like, why? Like, should they be, if people want to see them play and they're good, why should they be, told not to pursue their passion, let alone make money doing it? But Steve, they don't need to do it for the money.
No.
Everyone always likes to make some more money.
For sure.
But it's like, when Steve was 20, he wasn't thinking about when he would be 25 or 65. But that's the nature of, how it goes.
Yes.
I hope I die before I get old. Well, The Who is still touring.
That's exactly it.
It's just like, so I find that, and maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if punk rock gets more of that, where it's like, you're old, you shouldn't do it anymore, or whatever. And I don't pay attention to these things, because I had to listen to enough of, like, why is this Dimkich guy there? He was in the cult, he shouldn't be there, or whatever. So
I'm sure.
There was less than I had expected, and the band was always really cool about it. They're like, dude, there's 6 people complaining. Don't be upset.
It's like,
but it takes the one.
Of course it does.
My pro bike racer buddies, they would like I've known Mark Cavendish. I haven't talked to him in a while, but like, he's the guy who would go on social media and look at people hammering him. And it's like, dude, you won the fucking green jersey, and someone said you're paid too much. You know what I mean? Like, and it would bug him, and I get it, because it's like the one guy who's like,
of course.
So, I think, but there's so many punk bands that, are older guys that are still doing it. So it's like, I don't see why it shouldn't continue.
No.
I mean, the band makes records. I mean, bands make records every 5 years now. You know, it's kind of just how it goes.
Of course.
And you know, I would, you know, I mean, I'm always happy to do side gigs when I'm home. If anyone wants, you know, I'm putting that out there. You know?
Yes.
I mean, that's one of those things. Like when I was in the Cult, it'd always be like, shit, I would go play bass in our opening band if they wanted, but they always assume like, well, you're in the Cult. You know, we could never afford you. It's like, well, when I'm sitting at home, it's like I'd rather go
do
you know,
something.
Yeah, make some money and play some guitar or bass or whatever.
Yeah.
And not, you know, so
You're the type of guy that'll go get a job at Steve Madden, right? Like it's
exactly. So it's like people, if
wake up.
If you like how I play guitar, I also play bass very well.
Yes. Yeah. See, I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. And I think it also keeps you young.
Yeah, it keeps it's. I don't like to sit at home and play guitar. Like I there are moments where I do, but I'm not someone who has to play guitar every day. Yeah, that's not just. I'm not that guy. But yeah, to get out and work, and I mean, I would do acoustic shows. My friend Tim, the Sucker Punch guy, we would go do acoustic shows at this place up in Westlake. It was just it's kind of one of those like bistro winery places where it's just cougars and their daughters, and they come and drink Chardonnay and get nutty. And we would just, you know, play like Rod Stewart and Faces songs and Eddie Rabbit and whatever. And it would keep me in shape. And I get on the road with Bad Religion and I'm like,
freaking tight.
Yeah, because I've been playing acoustic guitar, which is like really hard.
Yes. I love that, man. I love that. You know, like having all of these life experiences and doing the marathons, the ultra marathons, playing in punk rock bands, you know, when you leave this earth, right, everything that you've done, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to remember you for?
Well, I have a son, so that obviously, like, you know, what he thinks counts the most.
Yes.
In terms of like music stuff, I don't know. I would always like to think that I play for the song, and just kind of, I don't know, just went out there and, I mean, because live is pretty much what I do.
Yeah.
That I just kind of went out there and you know, gave it, you know, use the bike racer term, like gave it full gas, like, you know, just fucking went out there and didn't stress out about it and get precious and just play guitar and, you know, I mean, my one kind of dorky thing that I do is, maybe this is my good wrap up thing. When I went to go see Steve Jones in Checkered Past, my mom took me, and I was 13 maybe. I was very young, and I got there super early at the Roxy. It was just like rammed right up against the stage, and they come out, and Steve Jones is playing. He's got his foot on the monitor, and I remember just, you know, I was staring up at him like, you know, a nutcase probably, but I just remember he looked down and made eye contact with me. And he looked great. He was like super skinny and his hair was really huge. And he just looked at me. He made eye contact and winked at me and just kind of shook his head back like I see a kid. And that, just the fact that he acknowledged me, like, changed my life. And I told him that. And so my thing I do is, like, I'll look down, and in the Cult it was the same, and in Bad Religion there's always, more so in Bad Religion, there's a lot more young people and kind of a diverse audience. If I see some kid who I think maybe he's who I was when I was his age, I will try to sort of interact with him and give him sort of that thing of like, you know, I was where you were, I get it. Like, if this is maybe what you want to do, like, I don't know. No. If my just sort of giving him like, hey kid, I see you.
Yes.
You know, and that might give him that, because Steve Jones said this, and a lot of people say it, like they would go see David Bowie and they were like, these were like people that came from outer space, and I couldn't believe that they were even here. Yeah. And you couldn't even imagine that you were the same species as them. Like, you really do. When you're a kid, you look at your heroes and you're like, do they put gas in their car?
Yes.
Do they live a normal life? Do they go to the market?
Yeah.
You know, I saw Ringo Starr at Whole Foods and I was like, yeah, they go to the market. It's Whole Foods.
Yes.
But you don't think when you're young, you don't think that. You don't think you're gonna bump into Ringo in the bulk bin getting soybeans or whatever he's fucking getting.
Yes.
So for them to acknowledge you, I couldn't believe it was happening. And then later I realized Steve Jones was a normal person and was a sober junkie and was broke, and I drove him around and he shoplifted an ice cream bar. But so I guess my thing is not to put myself on that rock star pedestal, but like if interacting with a young fan, I don't know, breaks down that thing and makes them realize, because that made me realize like maybe I could be in a band too and be up there because the guy actually acknowledged me. So I guess maybe we are in the same dimension.
Yes.
So that's what I do. That's my thing at shows. I'll always try to think like, is that like the sad kid that maybe music is like all he's got going for him, and maybe he'll form a band and drag himself out of, whatever's going on.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, most times people get in music, they're like trying to escape something or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is my like, puppy rescue situation.
That's absolutely incredible, man. I can only imagine, being the kid watching you guys play up there and then getting acknowledged, especially the kid that's going through shit. Dad's beating him, whatever, mom left, whatever the situation is, right?
I mean, I hope I'm not being
No.
presumptuous that it's like, I'm the guy that can change
it's
that.
It's not at all. But being acknowledged, being seen makes people feel a certain way. And it does, like you said, it makes you feel, instead of being larger than life when you're up there rocking out with Bad Religion, it's like, wait a minute, there's something here. Maybe I could see myself up there one day, right? Or whatever it is in life, and I think that does, even if it did that to one kid, man, you did your job, right? And who knows what it does, but at the end of the day, it will make them feel good. It makes you feel good. And it's just a good thing to do. And I love hearing that too. So it's a really good story. Your story is awesome, man. Like and I know you got a lot more, but like, I really do appreciate you coming on the show to come share your story, right? To come talk about bits and pieces of it. And we've been talking for a while now. And I appreciate you making the bike ride out here and doing all of that. You're a really good human being, and I just, fuck, man, just keep on doing what you're doing, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on the show.
Oh man, thanks for having me. It's nice to be in a position where you can talk about yourself for extended periods of time, and someone seemingly gives a shit.
Yes.
Now you got to edit this down.
No, man, we got this. Where can people find follow you on social media?
I'm at Mike the Serb on Instagram.
Such a great name.
That was given to me by my running group.
I love that.
That's a whole nother freaking story. I'm not on. I think I deactivated my Twitter. I'm just on Instagram.
Nice.
I keep
Smart.
it like bike rides.
Yeah.
Once in a while, I'll get riled up and post something, but it's mostly just like bike rides and out and about on tour, stuff like that.
Random. I love that, man. And I love that you make it a point to still run and stay active and stay healthy, man. Like I admire that.
I mean, it's ego, it's vanity. You don't want to go. When you see the Stones, like Mick Jagger looks great.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah. Well, that's you, my friend. I mean, I know he's many years older than you, but still, that will be you one day.
I hope so.
Right? Shit, man. Yeah, it definitely will.
I'll be back at Steve Madden by then.
All right, Mick. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Oh, absolutely. Thank you, man. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Smooches. Boom!